I call the City Council work session on January 17th, 2018 to order at 6 p.m. Roll call, please.
Mayor Copeland.
Here.
James Burton.
Here.
Ken Jones.
Here.
Jeff Gard is absent. Robert Beadle. Absent. Ann Schaefer.
Here.
David Allison.
Here.
James Weiss is absent. That's a quorum of council.
Okay, the topic of the work session this evening is the work plan review. And I'll turn it over to Manager Lanning.
As I had indicated, we were anticipating having our investment firm here, UBS, and due to some unforeseen circumstances, I had to do something different for this work session. We're trying to get our both our investment folks here and our auditors here. So, and that'll be a good session for you because our auditors will be here in the next month or so to go through the audit with you, with us, so that we can answer any particular questions. My task tonight was to sort of give you, in the first month, some of the things that we're going to work on from a staff level in the coming year. And you probably all don't have a copy of the strategic plan in front of you. If you need one, I have an extra copy. But the idea being that everything we do, as I said from the beginning, everything that we do is going to be tied to the strategic plan so that we don't have to guess what it is that has value and importance for us going forward. There will obviously be other tasks going forward, but really where we're going to concentrate. So this is to give you a flavor of what we're going to do. And then if you want to talk about other things, other priorities, or you have questions along the way, we can discuss those this evening. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with the 18 budget. We completed the 17 budget on 12/6, and that was approved by council, and that's the budget that we're operating now, is the fiscal year 2018 budget. Excuse me. That's this book, of course, and there will be additions to this book. We have to go back through and do all the 2017 actuals, which are pre-audit, of course, and then we have to add in all the fee schedules in the back. Normally, those fee schedules were lumped into a single document, and we're going to put those in the appropriate fee schedule areas to which they belong. We have a few other corrections that we want to make in the budget, but primarily, and when that's finished, we will be giving you another copy. Those year-ends should be done in the next few weeks, as we're paying invoices that are due from 17. We're going to begin work on the 2019 budget again in May and June. Same format that we had before. Right now what we're thinking through is what new documents, what new charts, what new things we're going to add to the budget to provide you with good information. I've already said that the final budget for 17 will be coming soon. You can see that those first three items are part of the strategic planning financial plan. So our plan goes to 2020, so everything we do relative to the budget is part of the financial plan in keeping with the first 5 items in the strategic plan. The next one, in terms of our economic plan, in 2017, we completed the pharmacy transaction. As you know, you appropriated money for that, and that item will be finalized by February 1st of this year, the final payment for that, and they're moving forward. Happy to say that I was over there picking up a prescription of my own, and the previous day they had done 67 prescriptions. The pro forma was written on 30. So we're hopeful that that will have, yes, sir?
Is there a question online?
No, I got my phone muted.
Okay.
So we're hoping that that will have, ongoing financial benefits, which is part of our strategic plan of making the hospital self-reliant, self-sustainable in terms of their operations.
What was that number, Ellen? You said that the pro forma or the kind of the target was for 30 prescriptions a day,
30 prescriptions a day,
and they had hit what?
67.
Oh.
They were doing 9 a day prior to even announcing that they were open. So we have some other things that we're going forward with here, meetings in the next week. Everybody has to have a pharmacy benefit provider, and that's where a lot of your money goes. If you recall, we use part of our savings returns from our pharmacy benefit provider and our medical provider. We're going to try to reduce that number, and we're talking to some firms now that will limit their cost to us per prescription price, which is going to be extraordinarily low. So as soon as we get through those, I'll give you an update on what those mean to us. All in the idea of providing economic sustainability for us. As you know, we had a town hall meeting last night. Kathy informed me there were about 70 people there total. That was I thought it was a pretty good meeting. There are still unanswered questions in a number of areas, but the town hall meeting fit into the information strategic planning effort overall. We had indicated that, last year I had indicated that we were gearing that up for January. We wanted to fulfill that. I have had a request from Councilman Burton in particular that he was unable to attend last night, but he would like to have another session soon, which in my mind, and he can speak for himself, which in my mind would be geared more toward a council town hall meeting where you as a council can respond to questions and sort of give the policy side of where we're headed. So, and we can work on that in the next month. Again, our auditors will be coming sometime soon to present the audit. That's part of our economic plan. UBS is coming. They'll be here at the next meeting to go through our investment strategy and other questions. And if you look in our audit, you can see that we do have an investment policy in the audit. That's part of our economic planning and our economic plan. Adams Street has been assumed by the state. Is that the right word? And they will continue on with that project. We have already sent over our match, and the match is the match. Won't be any more. So we feel like we're in good shape with that because they're going to run that project. So that's going to be a good thing. I think, Kenny, that's a question you had asked a month or so ago. So that's good. That fits into our infrastructure. At the same time, we're going to try to coordinate the patch over by the reluctant fishermen and Fish and Game that did not get patched last year. That's part of our infrastructure. In terms of also infrastructure and land development, we're working with the Science Center in direct negotiation on a proposal that will be presented to the council. I think Katrina said at the February 21st agenda, she'd like to present it. So we should have something very soon from them. And part of that is going to be an agreement that the watershed, Parks and Rec, and the Science Center all agreed to sort of manage some of that property in a way that's beneficial to the community. In terms of the internal workings of the city, the internal organization, we are going to examine some reorganization efforts this year. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but see if we can restructure, create some more efficiencies, those kinds of things for the organization. Also, in terms of infrastructure, the used oil building is out for bid. Those bids, do you say January 26th this morning?
Yes.
Those bids are due. We've had some interest from all over the place. Nothing solid yet, but we've had some good interest on that. One of the things that I had talked about when I first started was someday I'm going to bring you a marijuana ordinance, and we did. And that was passed on the 3rd, and the second reading is slated for tonight?
No, we had to skip one because.
2/7.
Yeah, yes, 7.
You know, philosophically, my part in that was merely to give you an opportunity, because of state law, was to have the mechanism in place to regulate how you chose to do that, and that was the intent of that ordinance. Also, in terms of internal services, Chapter 16 revisions, Chapter 4, Chapter 17, Chapter 18. You know, it was commented last night at the town hall that some of those are going to be very difficult, and I agree with that. We're working right now to figure out strategies, how we're going to potentially address those. I would say at some point, we're probably going to have to consider spending some money to get those things done, either with our attorneys or an outside firm to get some of those done. It's just really beyond our time, and in some cases our expertise ability. In terms of economic development, in the next few meetings as we go along, we are going to present you with a fully developed RV expansion, park expansion model that covers both 5 Mile and Kodiak Park. So we did all of that in-house, so that certainly not real glossy, but very well done, and a lot of thought put into it. And that, again, that was done in-house, trying to save money, which fits into our economic development. Then the Events and Promotions Committee, which Kathy is starting here very shortly. It's going to have some, some staff members on it and different people in the community. Trying to attract some really good thinkers. And I have more than once expressed my belief that we could entertain an extreme adventure race or something of that nature. And so they're going to try to get that ball rolling, as well as work on some of the smaller cruise vessels to help us not only economic development, but in terms of promotion of events for our community. Internally, we have union negotiations coming up starting about February. So that will be something that we have to get through. And as a reminder, at this juncture, increases are not built into this budget. We did not build them in. It would be a half a year scenario. I think last year's scenario cost about $35,000. We absorbed it in the budget, but at the time the negotiations are finished, I will let you know how that impacts the budget as we go forward. Probably one of the more delicate items that I want to talk about tonight is E911 and addressing. That has been, an ongoing subject here for all of 20 years perhaps. Dave, how long have they been talking about E911?
Long time.
Long time. Well, previously the city enacted, and I think we still have enacted, a 911 surcharge, which is $1 per line per month or $2 per line per month. It covers both hard lines and cell phones. And at this current time, that account has $65,000 in it. The two things that are tied together here are, as I understand it, what you want to happen is when they call, you want that physical location to come up for the dispatcher so that your youngest dispatcher or your newest dispatcher, everybody else may know it has got to go over to Bob's house by the annex or whatever it is, and everybody knows to go over there. But if you have the ambulance people or dispatchers that don't know that, they've got to have a physical address to go to. Also track cell phones. So we would like to get going on that. In order to do that, we have enough money to get started, but we're going to have to talk about the 911 surcharge. Because that would have to be re-implemented to complete the whole project for a certain period of time and then to maintain that project. And so that will be something that we need to talk about going forward. That falls into internal services again. One of the things that I promised you early on was talking about getting you fund balances, because we always talk about fund balances. We really never know what we have, and we are going to try to reconstruct a 10-year history of all the enterprise funds, all of our fund balances, so that you can see what's happened over a lengthy period of time. And that's going to take a little work, but that will be in next year's budget for sure. That's part of our financial plan. We also have some infrastructure and partnerships. One of the things we neglected last year, we just glossed over a couple times, was the Crater Lake conversation. And, in my opinion, I think what we need to do is we need to decide if we're going to be a partner with CEC on that and what that partnership is going to look like, and try to get that resolved sometime this year, because there are milestones that have to happen. And I'm sure as an organization, they really need to know if we're partners in that. We need to determine what we're going to get out of it, what benefit that is to us. And then there's also the pursuing the funding. If an individual is doing that, or they're doing it as a utility, we're doing it in part as a local government. However that looks, it has different variations. We're going to do the strategic planning update. Don't know when we'll start that. I think March. Remember last year we were all here together, so we got to find a good time frame when we're all here and can sit down and go through the strategic planning. I suspect it will only take us 1 or 2 sessions to really do a good update to the plan. We don't have to go back through everything that we started with and drag a lot of that stuff out of ourselves. And then finally, we're going to work on project funding. We're going to spend a little money here with P&D engineers on the harbor, some upgrades to the harbor in pursuit of federal funding, and continue to, we're going to work on a Tiger grant for this fall, and those have to start here pretty soon. They're pretty involved, so we're going to start one of those. And just that's kind of my plan for the year to begin with. This is all the stuff that we're going to be working on to get us through the year. And I would offer that if you look through our strategic plan and you look at the list I've developed, everything fits within that strategic plan at some point. Not saying that we can't do other things, but that's where I'm started. So happy to answer any questions. Talk about any other subjects.
So council, that was kind of the list of tasks for 2018, the first page of the work session packet here. Is there any questions for the manager?
So
Yes.
Going back to the bullet point about the E911 and addressing, so the surcharge would be put on phone lines in town, like hard lines, so people would just
And cell phones, I believe.
within the city.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know, there's several thousand of those.
And what is the total estimated cost of implementing that?
Well, we don't know the answer to that exactly. In the first go around, we have to do a couple things. First of all, we have to get a capable GIS addressing person to be able to address the city. It's not a question of addressing every structure. There's empty lots in between, that has to have an address. So you have to have somebody very capable and knowledgeable about doing that. The last bid we saw, or I saw relative to that, was about $25,000 just for that part of it. Then you have to buy all the switches and electronics and have them installed. So in the first go around, I would hope that we would try to phase this so that the cash that we had would complete large portions of this. And without having numbers at my fingertips, I would suspect that the city, through our cash flow, would pay for the upfront cost to get this thing started, in addition to the 65. Let's just say 150 to get it all started. We pay the other 85, and then the E91 surcharge replaces that over time at the rate of, I think, $25,000 or $30,000 a year. That's the plan, kind of.
I just like to mention on that, this is something that CEC and maybe the other utilities have could probably partner on in one form or another. And especially for CEC's part, we're getting a lot closer to what they call smart meters. And if you have a GIS location for those, you know, if you're on vacation and your electric, and there's a power outage or something, then all those meters can tell us where the outage is and what's happening before we even start to respond. But there's also a lot of customer service things that go with that. So whether CEC works on building a GIS database first and the city uses that or shares the cost or something, I think there's an opportunity there. So,
as you can imagine, there's a lot of history. You know, there were databases that weren't purchased, the same kind of databases weren't shared. There's data that people collect that others don't collect or didn't collect. And so it's a matter of coordinating all of those things through our partnerships and getting it straight, getting the electronic hardware in place so that wherever you are, you call 911, somebody's going to show up.
is there other questions, council? I had one on the enterprise funds, and so are those kind of, are the enterprise funds, do they kind of reside in the general fund now? And so what I'm asking is kind of building those histories, kind of like pulling the ingredients out of the soup, just so you can see what.
Yes.
Okay.
Even though they are designated enterprise funds, our central treasury or general fund cash runs all of those systems while they contribute independent income to that system. And so I think all that has to be reconstructed, which was, part of that is due prior to John's arrival, just the way things were kept. And so we haven't even agreed on what data we want reconstructed out of there, but it's gonna be a task.
But at least there'll be a starting point, and whatever that starting balance is, that can be accounted forward.
Yes.
Okay, great. Any questions online from council? Any additional questions, Councilman Schaefer?
Just for clarification, when the auditors come, they'll be talking about the 2017,
Correct.
right? So those numbers ostensibly will be done by, I guess, February 7th is when they come.
No, they'll be talking about the 16 audit. Isn't that right? Is that, what do you have on the
Yeah.
book there? Is that the 16 audit? Yeah, we got the 16 audit in October of 17.
When
And-
will the 2017 audit
The
happen?
2017 audit will be done in October of 18.
Well, sometimes it gets done before that.
Sometimes it gets done before that. This one was a little different because the hospital changed auditors, and we had to coordinate their data with our auditors, and so it took a little bit more time. But it's months behind. They come in March,
I'm
April,
here in March usually, and
April.
a week or 2 weeks.
And then they do a session in June, and then they kind of finish up. So we're always running on a year behind almost on the audits. And I do have all those in my office if you're ever interested. Some of the tables and data that we pulled out of it and put in the budget, we went through individual audits back to 2009 to reconstruct some of that data.
I have them a lot electronically too.
Okay.
Other questions, council? Okay, that was the 2018 tasks, and the next item is the strategic plan adopted in May of last year.
As you can see, and I don't think there's a lot of separation between what we just talked about and the strategic plan. I think what I'd like to point out is, as we go through this, to look at the individual categories. First, to determine if our strategic plan priorities are the same. The financial plan, the economic development, support partnerships, infrastructure, and internal services. And then determine if, you can see on the very last page is the strategic work plan for 2018. I think year one was really intended to be a financial focus for us. In year two, because we have the plan in place, year two is intended to be a real internal focus. The comp plan, chapter 4, of course, the used oil project has changed a little bit with going to a building in a settling pond instead of the centrifuge, as we had originally indicated. But we do have the 60 grand that we didn't spend from last year, 60 grand more budgeted this year, and then the 200 authorized out of their reserves for the project. So I think we're gonna get a long way with that. I think one of the real key ingredients for us going forward is reorganizing. Again, I'll say I don't know what that looks like, but the intent is to reorganize in a fashion that produces efficiencies for us, and we'll see how that goes. One of the little reorganization things we did that I highlighted last night is, Weston is sharing his time with the hospital. We're about to sign a new Arctic IT contract that's going to include CCMC so that we can share the work of Jason, our IT person, with the hospital, split those positions and spend half time on it, saves both of us money. That's a little bit of a reorganization thing, not total, but we're trying to do a number of things like that to produce efficiencies. And I think until we hit that nexus that I pointed out last night between operations and personnel, you're going to see the costs in each area fluctuate. Marketing and event promotion, I think through the chamber, it's fair to say, Greg, that we're gaining a little momentum in moving forward with marketing and promoting ourselves. Again, my idea is to develop starting with the city, having the chamber, having some citizens involved to get us brainstorming about some events that might work for us and bring in more sales tax and sales. I think the RV park is critical. We still have to make a decision about are they going to be all season-long rentals, or are we going to save a few for transients, people, tourists coming through and to enjoy the place. So we have to work through that. And then marketing and promotion, again, how do we market ourselves and promote? There was a great picture that, Kathy, where'd that picture come from? That has the Cordova Center with the Northern Lights and...
The one on the e-news?
Yeah, it was on the e-news that if you saw that picture of the Cordova Center, that really glassy harbor and the Northern Lights, I mean, what a promotion piece. Like everybody to see that. So, how do we get our word out there? And so I think what we're going to look for when we start the work plan is we'll go through each one of these pieces, see if there's something in here that's of more importance to you, and then go back and create a 19 work plan. What do you want 19 to look like? Because I think our focus will change. It's been very financial. This will be very internal, and I think 19 will look quite different than that.
Go ahead.
So when were you planning on having that workshop?
Probably in March.
Okay. Yeah. Hoping we could do it not in March, because James and I will both be fishing herring, but.
Okay, well, we can do it whenever's convenient for you. Our objective, my objective, is to really get your input for what you want 19 to look like, because that's what I prepare the budget based upon. And without that focus, I just do what keeps the lights on, so I really need to be focused in that direction. So what would be good for you?
Would the last meeting in February work? Or is that already spoken for?
Well, I'm unsure of the auditors, but we could tentatively schedule, I guess, that meeting in February.
Or the first one in April would work better for me, at least. But I don't know about other council members.
I'd rather go to April, if that's okay with council. That just gives us a little more experience, first quarter of the year, to know where we are, and then have a little more time to think about what it's going to look like for 19. I'd also like to have, which we won't have at the end of February, I'd really like to have our year-end numbers, because I think we're pretty close to being flush for the year. And that'll be important for us to know, are we down, are we up, how far, and what's the root cause of that.
When you mentioned earlier that we were going to have P&D do some work on the harbor. I know Clay's been working on it. I've been talking to him about it. When they're going to be trying to get that done by, or?
Well, we're going to meet with them initially Friday morning at 9:30 by teleconference in the mayor's conference room. So if you'd like to come and listen in, be happy to have you there. And we're just going to talk. I don't know where it leads to at this point. We were anticipating a boots on the ground visit, but we're going to, flight schedules and so forth. We're gonna start that way, and he might be available to come next week on Wednesday and Thursday.
Okay. And have you looked up and, there's a, I can't remember what it's called, but it was in 2013, there was a series of South Phil, meetings, community meetings about how to further develop that commercial area. Have you?
I have not read those.
Okay.
PND did though. I gave them a link to that last week and they kind of read up on them. That's kind of how they came up with this draft. But I'm thinking too, we should probably get an email out to the Harbor Commission if that's appropriate, in case the Harbor Commission members want to sit in on that presentation
Sit in on that, please.
at 9:30 Friday morning.
Okay.
Just, it'd be good to get there. I know they've been looking at this for a long time, so. But then I think the intention is to get a good draft and a rough order of magnitude estimate that we can take to Juneau at the end of January and try to come up with a match get a commitment for a match on the state side if we can get a federal commitment, and then in trips to DC in March and April try to the infrastructure package is just starting to move, so trying to get those stars to line up.
Yeah, I think this whole exercise is really about how we can secure some outside funding.
And the city put together a really good presentation for last year for the infrastructure project, but there's been some sea changes there, and I just yesterday morning was contacted by the Coast Guard to have a meeting regarding the fast class vessels in DC, and that's really good sign, so
Yeah.
pretty excited about that, so.
Is that something that we might want to work into the
Absolutely.
PND
We went,
discussion?
we went
I
over
think
some
so.
options so we can show them, so.
You know, it's interesting, I was reading the Tiger Grant, and there's a section of those grants that are specifically targeted at rural maritime economic development. So I thought that's a perfect fit for us, you know, if we can build an application that is competitive. So we're making those pursuits. I would offer that, you know, as we've talked our way through this, we've sort of danced around this a number of times, and I've said it, but you know, not too strongly, is that I think at some point we really need to consider spending some money for some expertise to get some of the documents that we want, some of the presentations that we want. You know, we talked about a waterfront master plan. I've heard that thrown around a few times, and you know, I think we really need to consider, maybe get some ideas of what that would cost us, what kind of information we'd want in that. The other one is and I mentioned it last night, and I could hear the air coming out of a couple of folks on the planning commission, but you know, the comprehensive plan between what we can do in-house and hiring some expertise, that is going to be an extraordinarily large piece of work for us as well. And I hope that we've learned over the last year that, you know, planning is really a key issue for us to keeping us on track, sustainable, and working in the same direction. So I think when we have our strategic planning session, I'd sure like to have some conversations about that. You know, what would 100,000, what would 150,000, 50,000, 200,000, what could we get for that in terms of preparation that would help us pursue grants, Tiger grants, federal funding, give us an idea as we're developing the waterfront. Remember the conversations we had about land development versus land disposal. You know, could really tie into the harbor about what we want developed versus what we want to dispose of, and have a master plan for that. So I'd like to talk about those at some point.
Council, any questions on the strategic plan? You have a copy of it here, so. Plans for 2018. Any questions online?
No questions here, Clay.
Okay, council, this is a work session. We can recess, or
If you don't mind, I'll give you a little, I did in preparation for tonight, I had asked UBS to provide us with some data. And we have, for all intents and purposes, we have two accounts. We have the permanent fund account, which is our absolute savings, can't touch it account. It takes the whole council to be able to take money out of that account, as we did for the PERS, for CCMC, and the UPS, and a couple of other issues for the hospital. And that's kind of the can't touch it, can't spend it, as much as we can protect it fund. Now, really the only way that fund is earning any money at this particular time is the interest that the fund is earning. And Mary, you had a really good explanation of where a lot of that money came from, some from, was it for school bonds, and different things that kind of loaded that fund up on the front end. It was 3.4 million prior to those funds coming in, so its level is more of a recent level than it was a past level. But right now there's $8.8 million in that fund, and expect to hear that our return on that fund is going to be about 10% for the year 2017. The other fund that we have is the our general fund, referred to sometimes as the central treasury. That has about $6 million in it at the end of December of last year, 5.77, I think, 5.8. But $1 million of that is relatively tied up in cash and equities and so forth. So it really leaves us $5 million. And that $5 million is our cash flow. And that $5 million in cash flow operates the entire system in the general fund and all of the enterprise funds. So when the harbor sends over a bill, the central treasury pays that bill, and then as revenue comes in, it goes into the accounts for the harbor, but essentially it's paid out of that cash flow. And just thought that would be helpful for you to understand. So really what we have in cash assets, we have about $14 million. 6 to run the system, 8 for savings. And as I pointed out last night, you know, I think the $6 million really meets the council's goal of 60% of having cash flow. I don't know what your goal is for. That's another thing we should establish, is the goal for the permanent fund, where you want that to be. And so it gives us a lot of options going forward if we need to. I think somebody said I gave up the school floor last night. I didn't, because I don't vote, but you know, if we had to do that repair, we wouldn't have to take that money out of the permanent fund. You'd have enough cash flow to be able to pay for that. You just have to appropriate the money. So, yes, sir.
So I guess on that topic, that it's one question I've had for some time. I think I brought it up at the previous meeting, but you were away. Is the fish tax revenue that we received in November? Mm-hmm. I believe that was in excess of what we budgeted for 17. Mm-hmm. That went into the central treasury / general fund, correct? Mm-hmm. And has there been any more thought put into, stashing that away into the savings account, the permanent fund? Because that was kind of my interpretation of the strategic plan, is we wanted to save that for when we have a down year in fish tax revenue.
Yeah, can I make you a little drawing on the board? I won't take credit for this. I'm actually going to give credit to Greg Meyer for this, so I'll draw it on the board for you. Kind of a visual.
Make it big so I can see it. I'm watching on YouTube.
Make it big, he says.
Okay.
Also, I agree with Mr. Jones' interpretation of what we thought was going to happen to that one. So.
Okay. I think there's a difference between, that cash coming in and the level of the budget. Those are separate issues. So I'll give you an interpretation. What I would offer is, this is your budget level at 10.5 million. And every year you take in revenue to support this number. But it doesn't come in at 10.5 million every year. Sometimes high, sometimes low. So as we went through the end of the Cordova Center and we went through the LT2 project, our cash in the central treasury went down to about 5.4 million. All right? What that fish tax at 700K did was it just took our cash flow back to this level to fill up the well. But it doesn't affect the need for the budget, because the budget is a separate issue, funded on an annual basis by revenue appropriations. Now, if we can live okay on a $5.4 million bucket, if this was the top of our bucket, and then we got something like this, then realistically you could say we're going to send it over here, or we're going to put it back here and save it. But that's not the case. We were down here and we merely filled the bucket back up. It's not extra money.
So Alan, is part of that well enterprise fund balances that you were talking about as well?
Yes.
So there's a difference between cash and accounting. And so cash is something you always have to pay the bills. But if you happen to be $6 million at one point, that may mean that you still have $5 million coming in and you only have $3 million of expenses. And so, your cash flow is going to look really good once all those transactions happen. But so that $700,000 of fish tax doesn't mean it's going to go into the well and get used. It can still be accounted for there and set aside as excess fish tax revenues.
End of year cash.
It's just cash that you can draw down and fill back up to help balance grant money coming in and out, your day-to-day expenses, paying all your bills at the beginning of the month, having all your bills collected at the end of the month, just those.
Well, for 2017, I think our budget was 10.294 million. I know to start with that we spent $377,000 additional going to the hospital.
On top of the 10.2?
Yes. So if we break even in terms of cash flow, it will be because of this, but it doesn't give us extra money. Cash flow.
Yeah, I guess my understanding of the strategic plan and putting that fish tax aside every year, that's why we budgeted low in the first place, is that so we would build a pot that could take the peaks and valleys out of our fish tax revenue, so, because we can't calculate it every year.
And that's a separate issue too, because, if we budget 800, which may not be the right number, maybe we should, next year's budget consider 9 or 950 or 7, whatever the number is. On our $1.1 million balance, we are going to do just that. We're going to backfill the low years and we're going to set aside in the high years. But that doesn't mean that we're going to have money to sock away in the permanent fund. We've got to reappropriate it for the permanent fund and have a restriction fund. Where it's going to reside is it's going to reside over here, but it's going to be part of a cash flow so that in any given year, we can go back and say, we're going to budget all of our revenues plus some of our savings or central treasury money to backfill here.
So another way of saying that is if we have the revenues in 2018 that we budgeted for, and we get $800,000 exactly in raw fish tax this year, and that's how much we budgeted, we're gonna end up with a $6.7 million balance at the end of the year, because that 700,000 in there is gonna,
Well, this level stays.
well, yeah, I guess, no, that's not a good example.
So the 700 comes in is merely going to cover the revenue level that we predicted, or the 800 we predicted for the year. But right now, in the 2017 budget, there might be 400 line items that are off that will be reconciled during the audit. That really makes your plus and minus in your budget. And rather than reappropriate money, you do journal adjustments from your cash to fill those, unless there's something, from an auditing standpoint or GASB law that you have to reappropriate money. That's fine.
Councilman Allison?
Yeah, just, I understand what Councilmember Jones is saying, but when you put it in the permanent fund, I'll give you a real life example. Sitting here at this council table for a number of years when the city got forest receipts, and I've called them a windfall before. They were a windfall for the city. And many of those years when we were getting 1.7 million, 1.5 million, 1.3 million, it was reducing 10% a year. We did put money into the permanent fund from that we didn't have to give to the schools, because we had already given the schools their 1.9 million or whatever it was. So we had extra money in our general fund. We moved that money to the permanent fund to assist with bond payments when the need came. I mentioned that when we were doing the budget this year. Nobody seemed to have any interest in taking any money from the permanent fund to pay some of those bond payments. So what are we left with? Raising taxes. If we stuck all of the extra, if our fish tax is 900,000 this year, it's 100,000 over budget, we stick that in the permanent fund. Next year when we do the budget and we're gonna end up in the same spot, trying to get $100,000 out of the permanent fund, but because 2 council members don't wanna do it, we're stuck with coming up with the money some other way. So it's better we leave it in the general fund. We can allocate it like the manager just said, but I don't think we want to stick it in the permanent fund as a ploy to save it for padding budgets for lower years. We want to put it in permanent fund as a ploy for rainy day when we don't have any other options and we need some piece of equipment or whatnot. So I would caution against, I guess, putting everything back into the permanent fund, because as I have learned, intent of one council is not necessarily the happenings of the next council.
Other questions, council? Okay, I'll go ahead and adjourn the work session, and we'll have the council meeting in 2 minutes. Roll call, please.
Mayor Copeland,
Here?
James Burton,
Here.
Ken Jones,
Here.
Jeff Guard is absent, Robert Beadle. Here. Ann Schaefer,
Here.
David Allison,
Here.
James Weiss.
Here.
That's a quorum of council.
Okay, we have a quorum.
Move to approve the regular agenda.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the regular agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved as submitted. Does council have any conflicts of interest to disclose for tonight's meeting? Councilman Jones.
Mr. Mayor, on the letter from the Net Loft, I do their sanding and snow removal on their sidewalk and on their parking lot. I'm not sure if that could be considered a conflict. If they were to expand, it could increase my business with them.
It's, I don't think there's a direct economic benefit there, so I think the transparency is important. So I don't see a conflict unless council wants to declare one. Seeing none, any other conflicts of interest? Okay, hearing none. Communications by and petitions from visitors. We have a lot of attendees tonight, so I'm just going to remind you that audience comments are limited to 3 minutes. I try to allow some flexibility, but we have a lot of people in attendance tonight, so I may be a little stricter. And but I would ask you to please, if a lot of people are speaking to the same item, if you could try to touch on topics that haven't been brought up or pointed out. And then at some point, if there's a lot of people in favor or in opposition, I'll probably ask for the counter arguments from anyone in the public that would like to present those. So with that, we'll go to audience comments regarding agenda items. And if you'd like to speak to an item on the agenda, if you could just state yourนand address for the record here on the microphone for the Councilman Online's benefit, we appreciate it. So yeah, I'd like to just come up to the front, use a microphone, that'll help our Councilman Online. So if you want to just state your name and address for the record, thank you.
My name is Dottie Whitman. My address is 245 EAC Drive and also 140 Adams, where we have the Net Law. And I just wanted to make the comment that we were going to pause on our letter of intent while we examine our options downtown to try to keep on Main Street, and hope that you will consider helping, just being supportive of the development downtown area with what we have some big plans to make something really beautiful and make the Net Loft continue on in the community.
Okay, great. So so you're not speaking in favor of the council passing your earlier request. This is a follow-up request to just kind of put that request on hold. Okay, thank you very much. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, maybe if people want to line up along here, if they're going to speak, so that we have
Yes.
a quicker flow.
Thank you. Yeah, that would help. If you want to just get in line there, then we can facilitate discussions. Thank you.
Yes, Mary Ann Bishop, 704th Street, and President of Prince William Sound Audubon. And I'm addressing the new business council action 17 on the disposal and method of disposal for the Breakwater fill lot. I'd like to request that council adopt Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation not to dispose of the Breakwater fill lot at this time. I have several reasons for this request. First and foremost, except for the South Phil's snow dump recycling area that's currently leased, the Breakwater fill lot is the last publicly owned waterfront lot. This lot is strategically important because it's located at the entrance to the harbor. And as all of you know, public waterfront access is limited in Cordova, And this is even more apparent during fishing season when every public parking area around the harbor is completely full. For citizens who simply want to park their car and watch the harbor, the CDT dock is not available because it's officially posted as requiring a transportation worker identification credential, that is a TWIC. There's high interest by the public as to how this land is used, as evidenced by the nearly 500 Cordovans that voted against the previously proposed commercial development just 2 years ago. Cordovans want a public discussion about how this lot's developed and whether or not it should remain, see how this lot is developed or not developed, and whether or not it should remain as publicly owned land. So I urge them to take public and Planning and Zoning's recommendation to City Council to not sell the lot at this time, to get input from the Harbor Commission, Parks and Recreation Commission, and the public for waterfront property planning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Max Weiss, 400 Railroad Road, Cordova, Alaska. I don't know how, but I'm on the Harbor Commission, and I know that we had a working master plan for the harbor since in 2012. And in 2014, we updated it to include the north ramp and the areas around it. And it seems like within 2 or 3 years, every time it gets changed, there's no way to plan. You know, it just gets moved, you sell the property, moved out, in or sell, out of sale. It's hard to manage anything. You can't plan anything because it's moving all the time. So that's basically my point. And I also like to thank you for working over our property deal we're working with here too. So thank you.
I'm just going to mention, since you're on the Harbor Commission, there's going to be a meeting Friday morning at 9:30 up here. And they're going to have a teleconference with PND to kind of look over that 2013 plan and also put it kind of an expansion plan together if you're available for that. That'll just be in the room. Thank you. Other audience comments on agenda items?
Just pulling these out. Sorry, this is just a letter being handed out. There are also copies for the public over there.
Yes.
Hello, yeah, my name's Rich Collins, live in 4.2 White Shed Road, Cordova. And I'd like to speak in favor of item 18. That was the disposal of the lot on the north fill there to Saddle Point Machine. I think having a full-service machine shop down there is a big benefit, not only to the fishing fleet. I've used Saddle Point on a few occasions and have kept me going. It's my fishing business, but I think it's be a good thing for the construction and all kinds of other businesses in town. So I think it's a good use for that lot, and it's I'm in favor of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Tony Schnella, Harbor Master, 114 Nickloff Way. I'm here to speak about the disposal of Lot 3, Block 5, Northfield Development Park. As Mr. Wee said, we have a master plan. We've worked on it. We've updated it to try to continue to make things better down there. We got the ramp down there with a floating dock, which is aimed at reducing congestion over here, over on the south side. By selling this lot, we tend to push that congestion back over to here. We also, you know, it's a service we provide to our customers, and every year it gets more and more use. I know when I got here 5 years ago, those lots were pretty much empty most of the winter and even some of the summer. They're full year round now. We've actually started even the big lot by the ramp, left that open for even in the winter use because more people have requested to come down there. Revenue loss, it's approximately a $14,000 revenue loss to, you know, the harbor. And every time we pull away from them, we have to either raise rates or cut back on what we do. I think what Mr. Brown's trying to do is a great thing. I just wish there was a better place for it or another place instead of taking a little bit more money out of the fishing community's pocket of trying to fix the harbor or save for new harbor. And then, you know, if you force it back down here, it's an issue with safety again. And if these guys can't come to here or find another place to store their boats, they're hauling them further away, which, you know, the 5+ ton boat and you're hauling it down the highway or out White Shed, it's a safety issue there too. So, I mean, I think it's something we gotta consider. It may not bring in as much, but it's a service that I think every harbor in Alaska provides.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And actually, I kind of neglected my duty a little bit, but Max, were you speaking in opposition to that same item? I should have clarified.
Yes, I was.
Okay.
Personally, not the commission.
Okay, yeah. I should have clarified which agenda item each person's speaking to, whether they're speaking in opposition or in favor of it. So I just wanted the record to reflect that Max Weiss was speaking in opposition to that disposal of Lot 3, Block 5, Northville.
So I'm Scott Pega. I'm at 110 Mount Eccles Estates, here to speak about items 17 and 18. I'm not sure if I'm going to say I'm in favor or against. Basically, what I am asking, I'm hoping that you will consider planning and zoning's recommendations, that if you choose to do something different, I would ask that you, if you choose to do something different, use method 4 for disposal, which is the request sealed proposals. That process does allow more time for input, and it does provide the applicants the opportunity to show the value of the proposed work to the community. So if you choose not to follow the planning and zoning recommendations, please consider using land disposal method 4. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, and thank you. You don't have to necessarily speak in favor or against this. It's just comments, but I'm just trying to keep track here.
Yeah, Ezekiel Brown, 601 Spruce Street. I'm speaking in favor of item 18 on the Northville lot. I appreciate what the harbor's done with that Northville lot. The ramp works really good. It's a good way to alleviate congestion, but the little lot my dad's looking at buying there is much, I don't see how it's going to increase congestion down in Northville. Those are mostly long-term storage boats from what I can tell that are in that small lot. I mean, there's parking directly across the street on the other side there. That long-term storage could go into, or out Orca, you know. I think there's plenty of space for boat parking in this town, and the Northville lot would be better used for temporary haul outs and repairs, which is what the machine shop will be used for, is repairing boats. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Tammy Altamont, 811 Woodland Drive. I'm speaking to item 18, the same disposal of Lot 2, Block 5, Northville. I would like to say that I'm in favor of the sale to Rob Brown. I think he offers a great business. I think the loss of storage, there are other storage places in town. And it used to be years ago that the city's philosophy was that they didn't directly compete with local businesses. And there are people that can provide this service. And even years ago the city wouldn't rent equipment if there was somebody in town that had that piece of equipment. And so it's just something to think about when looking at promoting business in Cordova and looking for ways to add to our economy. If we're promoting businesses, then people will stay, and then that will be our tax base. So,
thank you.
Jacob Hand, 920 Center Drive. I've been fishing out of here for 10 years, and I think I've got a sense of the abilities of this town skill-wise. There's people you go to for help, and having somebody like Rob Brown down near the waterfront would be a great benefit to the fishing community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Don Scott, 204 Boardwalk Way. I would like to ask the council to reconsider on the sales tax cap. We have had a petition, we had a lot of interest in it. We had over 150 signatures in 3 days. And I would like to ask the council to reconsider the sales tax cap. I am also in favor of selling the lot down there to Rob Brown. You guys are trying to raise money for the city. There's an opportunity to bring a business into town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Sean Gilman, mile 2.2 Whiteshed Road. I'd like to speak to the Lot 3 on the Northville. Personally, I'm really, comforted to have a guy like Rob around that might save my butt with some machining or something along the way, but sort of language. But I also went to the strategic plan meeting last night, and there's something called a working waterfront. So I would caution you moving too fast before there's, like the few previous people have spoken in opposition to this. There's got to be some thought process about how that's going to work down there, because both areas are pretty tight in the summer. And so as long as we can accomplish a working waterfront and add a great new business building, that I would be in favor of it, but otherwise I'm opposed.
Thank you.
Park Front FL 813 Woodland Drive, also with Shoreside Petroleum here in Cordova. I'm talking on the discussion of the sales tax exemption and other new taxes that we've implemented. I would like to see some serious thought on council about repealing this tax. Because it impacts all of the businesses in Cordova, but it certainly impacts several of the businesses a lot harder. Those businesses that do the expensive jobs, the nets, the construction companies, the big fuel sales. These are the lumber yard. These are the ones that are the hardest hit by the sales tax cap because it's on one specific item. So I would urge you guys to take a serious look at number 19 when it comes up. So we don't run businesses out of town, and we don't run business out of town. We make it easier to do business, whether that's Rob or anybody else in town. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, Wendy Rainey, 2500 Orca Road, Orca Adventure Lodge. I'd like to also thank you for reconsidering the sales cap exemption and potentially thinking about looking at the other new taxes that were implemented. When I spoke before the vote, I asked you to make sure that in the future, when you look at taxing businesses in town and things that affect businesses in town, that you talk to the businesses in town and go out of your comfort level and talk to all of the businesses in town and see how things are affected. There are certain businesses in town that cannot accommodate for these new taxes because their rates were set. So anything happening in 2017 has a set rate, and those raises cannot be passed on to those customers. So in the new time moving forward, when you're looking to promote business in Cordova and bring things in, things like land disposal for a machine shop on the harbor are key things and are good things. Taxing your businesses of your year-round customers and the businesses that stay in town is cutting off your nose to spite your face. And be very careful, because you're going to run businesses out of town instead of attracting new business to them. So I appreciate the fact that you're revisiting those taxes and you're looking forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom Carpenter with Copper River Seafoods, 501 Sunnyside Drive. I'd also like to speak in regards to the sales tax levels. I went back and did a little bit of research regarding our own transactions, especially with fuel primarily, and about 80% of all the transactions that we make are going to be are directly gonna be impacted by this new regulation, because we do typically buy in bulk, and it's a pretty consistent thing. So it's gonna have an impact on our bottom line, which ultimately is gonna have an impact on the fisherman's bottom line. So I think that if there's any room for you to reconsider what's been done, I think it would be an interesting thing to bring back up. Thank you.
Thank you. Other audience comments on agenda items?
Hello. My name's Alexis Cooper. I live at 1006 Whiteshed, C1. I'm here tonight just to make a comment on agenda item 18, disposal of the Lot 3, Block 5 Northville. I'm here in support of the harbor retaining this block. I remember in 2013, in my capacity as the director of Cordova District Fishermen United, what an effort it was to retain these lots for use by the harbor to expand their services to defray the congestion over here in the Southville. And multiple times in that period, it was an annual event to come and speak to supporting these lots for retention by the harbor. I think that the harbor has started a 5-year plan. I'm just curious, have they been fully considered in the request to take a not available lot and dispose of it within a period of 6 weeks? And as we move forward as a city, I was at last night's strategic plan meeting. I would like to see maybe a little pause on this in consideration of where we're going. When you look at the city maps and waterfront, there's not that much available waterfront lot to provide harbor services. And the commercial fishing fleet and the recreational users need access to the waterfront, and that's the cornerstone of one of our revenue streams. So in supporting development and business that supports the fishery and commercial users, how do we balance that? How do we find balance to protect what the harbor needs to provide its services as well as promote development? So maybe take a pause on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wasn't gone, but I can't help myself. Tom Baylor, 304 Orca Inlet. You know, Alan was talking about partnerships last night, so listening to the comments here on Mr. Brown's proposed building, which I certainly support the business. I'm not sure about the removal of that lot from the harbor, but as staff worked with him, is there any other available lots? You talk about partnership, sitting down, work it out. Maybe there's another available lot that would suit his needs. Just something I wanted to throw out there. And also to speak in favor, reconsider the sales cap tax there. I got several other points I'd like to make on that, but I'll wait till you guys start to reconsider that because it does have some effects. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there other audience comments on agenda items? Okay, seeing none. Reports of chairpersons of boards and commissions, school board.
I think a couple items of note. We just had our audit report, also 6 or 7 months after, and got a completely clean audit. So wanted to make sure the city was aware of that and also give some kudos to our business staff. The other is that we are embarking pretty strongly on a strategic planning process of our own. I think I mentioned it before a couple times. Hopefully you have received a survey, and if not, let myself or the superintendent know. We are seeking public input on a couple of items to get started on this process. Within the survey, not only is asking people what they're looking for from the school district, but also what their interest in participating further will be. So we'll look forward to anyone who is willing to participate with us as we kind of look to plan forward for the survey. This weekend is tip-off. I'm sure everyone in town knows, and Olivia will probably speak more to that, but wanted to invite you to what is always a very exciting athletic event of the district. Thank you.
Thank you. CCMC? Okay, it doesn't look like we have a report tonight, so our student council representative, Olivia.
Student council had nominations today to replace the officers. Surprisingly, no one wanted to be city council rep, but don't worry, I'm still here. Don't feel too bad though. No one wanted to be the school board rep either, and there still isn't one. The nominations are President William Deaton and yours truly, Vice President August Jewell and Elena Craig, Secretary Elena Craig, Treasurer John Appleton. We will vote on Friday of next week. The junior high robotics got 4th at their competition last weekend, and as Ms. Jewell said, tip-off is this weekend. Please come and support your Wolverines as they face the Palmer Moose, Unicleat Wolfpack, and ACS Lions, and buy something from the concessions. All proceeds go to worthy Cordova school causes. Close Up is having a breakfast on Saturday at St. Joseph's. Stop by, the food will be great. There's a rumor going around about the music program that it's going to be cut. Don't worry, it's not. And probably most important, the uniform issue has been resolved. This was a decision made by the boys basketball team, approved by the school. The black uniforms are pride uniforms for the military, just as the NFL has pink for breast cancer. This cause is close to the team's heart. It was a unanimous vote made this summer and fundraised for. We appreciate the support and understanding of the community and look forward to receiving the battle support in the future. As always, thank you.
Thank you.
So glad we have you back. Thank you.
Do council want to take separate any items off the consent calendar?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilman, is that Councilman Weiss?
Beadle.
Beadle, Councilman Beadle.
6.
I think I heard
6?
Set item 6 aside.
Yes.
Okay, any others, council? Okay, roll call on the remaining consent calendar items 5 and 7.
David Allison?
Yes.
Robert Beadle?
Yes.
Ken Jones?
Yes.
Jeff Gard is absent. James Weiss?
Yes.
James Burton?
Yes.
Ann Schaefer?
Yep.
The consent calendar is approved.
Okay, the consent calendar is approved as modified. I'll just move that item 6, resolution 01-18-06. I'll add it as item 21 under new and miscellaneous business.
Mr. Mayor?
Is that Councilman Beadle?
Between 19 and 20, or that's after pending agenda, calendar, and all that.
Oh, yeah.
15A, you want to put it as? In ordinances and resolutions?
Sure. Yeah, that's a resolution. Yeah, I'll put it 15A up under item L, ordinances and resolutions. Thank you, Councilman Beadle. Approval of the minutes.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the 12/20/17 council regular meeting minutes.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved as submitted. Reports of officers. I didn't have anything to add to my mayor's report, a lot of correspondence. I will just mention that I didn't get as much review of parliamentary procedure done this last week as I would have liked, but I did do a little bit of refreshing, and I'll just touch on that as we get into some items later, but I want to, I need a refresher to just kind of keep us within the rules on items, so I think that'll crop up when we get into discussions. Were there any questions on my report? Or? Okay, manager's report.
I think we had the first pretty successful town hall meeting tonight, or last night, and we'll be announcing some more of those and look forward to hearing from everybody. And since I talked for an hour to start with, I would answer any questions that you have.
Any questions, council, the manager? Hearing none, clerk's report.
So the regular election of March 6th, I've begun the advertising for that. The declaration of candidacy period opened January 9th. It closes February 6th. There are 6 total seats that will be voted upon. Council seat D and E, school board, there are 2 seats, and CCMC authority board, 2 seats. At this time, for seat E, Ann Schaefer has declared, and I haven't received any others yet. I have forms at City Hall. There are forms online as well. They need to be notarized, so if people want to print them and fill them out and bring them in, there are several people on city staff who can notarize. I have received back 2 initiative petitions that made the rounds, were circulated and brought back to me already with signatures. I'm in the process of determining the sufficiency and legality of both. With the assistance from the city attorney, we have 30 days. So I think February 11th is our deadline for that. And then the 3rd initiative petition came into my office on the February 15th. So the first 2 are on the repeal of the motor fuel excise tax and to change the sales tax cap from $7,500 back to $3,000. The 3rd initiative petition that I got on February 15th is about putting marijuana on the ballot, and that is circulating presently. And I was going to mention tip-off also, but everybody stole that thunder, so I will see you there this weekend, and I can answer any questions.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Beadle.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I was hearing her right. Did she say February 15th or did she mean January 15th?
For what?
For the marijuana.
Oh, sorry. They have until, I got it on January 15th. They have until February 15th to circulate that one, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of the clerk, council? Councilman Jones?
Yeah, I'm just, I'm not sure exactly the procedure for a ballot initiative. On the sales tax cap and the fuel tax, I know with a referendum, it would put a halt on the tax going into effect. Is that the same with the ballot initiative, or?
It is not.
It is not.
The referendum would have occurred if it was within the 30 days before the effective date of both of those, and these are initiative petitions that were done after the 30 days.
Okay, further questions, council?
Mr. Mayor, could you have Susan say that again, please, so I couldn't quite understand her.
So any ordinance passed by council has well, not every single one. There are a few that forego the 30-day requirement, but most laws put into place, which are by ordinance, have a 30-day waiting period, and that is the time that the people can come and refer that ordinance. And that is when they go around with a petition, and as long as it's brought back in with signatures before the 30 days, that, and then it's determined to be legal and sufficient, it would go on the next ballot, but the law does not go into effect until it gets voted upon by the people. But initiative petitions are different, and both of these, by the way, with the dates that they were turned in, will not make the March 6th, 2018 ballot. They could make a special election before or the next regular election.
And that's council's option.
Council can call a special election at any time.
Okay.
So,
And Councilman Beadle.
and that's in code, right? We can look it up and see how the.
Is what I just said in code? Yes.
Yeah, we can look it up and
Yeah.
digest it better.
Yes.
Okay, further questions, council? Okay, hearing none, we have correspondence in the packet. Not hearing any comments, so next item would be item 15A under ordinances and resolutions. And that would be resolution 01-18-06, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, supporting Points North Heli Adventures Incorporated, commercial access to United States Forest Service lands.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Beadle.
I mean, I'm not sure how to, do we need to bring it on the floor? Or
Yeah, we need a motion. Council doesn't have to make a motion, but,
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve Resolution 01-18-06, resolution of the City Council, the City of Cordova, Alaska, supporting Points North Heli Adventures Incorporated, commercial access to United States Forest Service lands.
Second.
have a motion and a second. Councilman Jones, would you like to speak to your motion?
You know, we've talked a lot about supporting local businesses and trying to grow our economy in this town, and I think that the heli skiers bring in much needed springtime economic activity, and I think any way we can support them is something that I want to move forward with.
Councilman Burton, you'd like to speak to your second?
I know, that summed it up pretty well.
Hey, discussion, council?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Beadle.
Okay, it's just, you know, I don't disagree with Mr. Jones. It's just, back in April 20th of 2016, we did the same resolution like this, and we were advised not to use Points North. We just had to refer to heli skiing adventures. And I was concerned that, you know, are we not really helping who we wanted to? And I was voted down. It's resolution 0416-18. And so I'm wondering what's the difference now? Instead of promoting heli skiing adventures, now we can do, now we can specify certain provider, I guess.
So council, I can speak to that.
You know, by the lawyers of that one, and now it's okay. Just the consistency of it, I'm looking for.
So Councilman Beadle, 2 years ago, I'd gone directly to the Forest Service, and Points North had requested support from the city, and the Forest Service had basically said they were really entrenched in the Chugach plan, and they weren't going to be picking up heli skiing requests, period. And if we wanted to write, they kind of suggested for them to support it, a generic letter. But what's happened in the meantime is this last winter, the Forest Service distributed temporary permits to heli skiing operations on the Chugach, Western Chugach Kenai Peninsula. And essentially, exactly, it could accommodate Points North. So in discussions with Points North, they specifically wanted their name to be mentioned. And so this resolution is essentially what they requested. And it really requests what the Forest Service has already allowed and kind of set a precedence for just recently. So the short answer is there has been a change in kind of policy.
Okay, yeah, just it was just said so contrary to what we did before. I didn't want to make it, you know, invalid. So
Exactly. Further discussion, council?
You feel like you want me to do a roll call with 3 on the phone?
Probably should.
Okay.
Any further discussion, council? Roll call vote, please.
So on resolution 01-1806, Robert Beadle,
Yes?
Ann Schaefer,
Yes.
James Weiss. James, are you there? Maybe we lost him. Ken Jones,
Yes.
David Allison,
Yes.
Jeff Gard is absent. James Burton.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
This is James Weiss, sorry about that.
Okay, you're a yes, James? Thank you. 6-0.
Okay, the resolution passes. New and miscellaneous business, item 16. This is council adoption of the 2018 city land disposal maps.
Page 40.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Jones.
I move to adopt the 2018 land disposal maps.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Councilman Jones, would you like to speak to your motion?
You know, I mainly made the motion so we can get it on the floor for discussion.
Okay.
I actually have a few concerns with some of the things on the map, and yeah, I'll wait to see what other council members have to say.
Okay, Councilman Schaefer.
I'm pretty happy with the maps that they did. I'm supportive of their decision to change the Breakwater fill lot from available to not available, and the general sentiment that was expressed in doing some waterfront planning.
Further discussion, council? Councilman Ellison?
Yeah, I guess in general, I'm okay with the maps, with the one exception, I guess. I think if we're changing, I believe that if we accept these changes, we are changing, maybe Sam can verify, but we're changing our policy, since we've accepted a couple recently that were on the non-available list. We've accepted the proposal, not necessarily approved of the proposal of lots that were listed as not available. If by approving this, we're doing that, is that a correct statement?
Mostly. So the change makes everything that's not available if you,
Well, I guess what I'm asking is,
yes.
Any lot that's marked as not available, we're now saying to the public, if you want to propose on that lot, feel free to
No.
propose on that lot.
What we are saying is that we will accept a letter of interest. The structure or why that particular lot is not available will be weighed by the city manager and staff and either put forward or not. And then the decision, then it has to be made available, and then it has to be voted to dispose of. So I mean, we go through this all the time because some people will wait because they read the map, they read it, and they're like, oh, we gotta wait till January. And then somebody else comes in and says, hey, this is greatest project since peanut butter, we're gonna do it now, and it goes through. And so there's not equity in that. And that's why we wanna do it this way. We don't get a lot of letters. So the number of letters of interest that may come in on a not available piece of property would be minimal.
Yeah, I'm in favor of that in general, so I just wanted to make sure that that was part of this. But that said, I would prefer to leave Lot 3 of Block 5 North Development on the not available list. We're going to talk about that lot here in a few minutes, and by doing that, it doesn't preclude approving that at a later point, just by having it listed as a not available, we would still have to make it available at the
Yes.
at the next step. But so I would make an amendment then to make lot 3 block 5, or leave lot 3 block 5 on the not available list at this time.
So the only little bit of weird
I'll second that.
technical part of that is it's been moved forward to make a recommendation to you. There's no memo to make it available, so that would be something you would have to do within that discussion.
I understand that. I would assume that my colleagues do as well.
Who seconded that?
Robert.
Robert? Okay, thank you.
So we have a motion for an amendment and a second. Councilman Ellison, I think you kind of explained why, but did you want to speak to your?
Yeah, no, I just don't, yeah, I don't need to explain it any further at this point in time. You can get into it later.
Councilman Beadle, would you like to speak to the amendment? Okay, council, is there further discussion on the amendment? To remove.
James Lee said, I'm sorry, I'm just kind of in transition, getting back to my hotel. I'm not quite clear on what the amendment is.
Okay, so the main motion is for council to adopt the 2018 city land disposal maps. The item on the agenda, number 18, for disposing of lot 3, block 5, that particular block is listed on this land disposal map as available. So there was there was an amendment and a second to remove lot 3 and block 5. Change the status to unavailable, to not available. And then the discussion on that was that even in not available status, that doesn't entirely preclude someone from applying for that lot, having the status changed with a review by city manager and staff. So we're taking discussion on that proposed amendment.
All right, I would suggest that putting anything on an unavailable map is, I don't think you get any more precluded than that. I'm not interested in keeping people from applying for lots here. And I think a lot more can be done with that. I'm fully in support of Rob Brown. Sorry, I'm getting off topic here. I would like to see both of these lots available for purchase, and I'd like to see our Breakwater lot a little more heavily advertised.
Okay, so you're opposed to the amendment. Further discussion, council?
Mayor.
Councilman Allison.
Yeah, I think Councilmember Weiss missed the entire conversation there that we had with Sam regarding the ability of anybody to, this agreement for the 2018 land sale or land lots availability or non-availability is changing the rules per se, in that any lot that's either available or unavailable, the city is willing to accept letters of interest on that and then determine if it's needs to go to the planning commission or the city council from that point. So just by making it unavailable does not preclude somebody from putting in a letter of interest for it.
Any further discussion on the amendment, council?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Jones.
So I guess I'm in favor of the amendment, not because I oppose Rob Brown's proposal, but because I hope that when we enter into our next discussion, we can discuss that particular item. If things don't, go through with Rob, I would hate to see this as left available on the map for the whole year. That's kind of why I would want to keep it as unavailable, and if we choose to move forward with Rob, we can make it available at that time, but not for the whole year, if that makes sense.
Okay. Further discussion on the amendment, council? Okay, I think I'll do a roll call vote on this one as well.
So on the amendment to make that one lot.
So this is amendment to the main motion to make Lot 3, Block 5 of North Phil to change its status from available to not available on the 2018 city land disposal maps.
Ken Jones.
Yes.
Jeff Gard is absent. James Weiss.
No.
Robert Beadle.
Yes.
James Burton.
Yes.
Ann Schaefer.
Yes.
David Allison.
Yes.
Okay,
There's 5-1.
the amendment passes. Further discussion on the main motion? Okay, hearing none, roll call vote, please.
David Allison.
Yes.
Ann Schaefer.
Yes.
Ken Jones.
Yes.
Robert Beadle.
Yes, and can you have Ann talk into the microphone? I can't hear her.
I'll sit more close.
James Weiss.
Yes.
James Burton.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay, so the city land disposal maps are adopted by council as amended. Next item is council action on disposal and method of disposal of Breakwater fill lot.
So what do you want to do with this since we're pausing? I don't,
She has submitted a letter to pause her request. It is on the agenda, so council can not make a motion and not second it.
or refer it to staff in case it comes back again.
Disposal of Breakwater fill lot, back to staff. Further discussion? I'm not hearing any opposition, so I'll do a voice vote. Is there any objection? Hearing none, that'll be referred back to staff.
Thank you.
Next item is council action on disposal and method of disposal of Lot 3, Block 5, North Phil.
I move to dispose of Lot 3, Block 5, Northville Development Park as outlined in Cordova Municipal Code 5.22.060. And then, do I have to pick one of the?
Yes, you do.
Methods of disposal.
Well, I guess.
Excuse me, can I speak first before you vote? I thought I was gonna have an opportunity to speak.
Oh.
It's not even on the.
No, it's during public comments at the beginning
Oh, okay, I thought later, all right.
on agenda items.
Okay.
So I just point out there's a staff recommendation, but it's asterisk and it has the 4 options. And I don't think there was a,
P&C's recommendation was direct negotiation.
okay.
I'll just go with the direct one right now, just to put it out on the table so we can talk about it.
By method 1, direct negotiation.
Yes.
Did everybody hear that?
Hard to hear.
Okay, so the motion, there's a motion on the floor to dispose of Lot 3, Block 5, Northfield Development Park, as outlined in Cordova Municipal Code 5.22.060 by method 1, negotiating an agreement with Robert Brown doing business as Saddle Point Machine to lease or purchase the property, and that was the method recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission. There's not been a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Would you like to speak to the motion?
So I'm a little conflicted here, I guess, because I think Rob Brown would have a great business to bring to town, and so I'd like to see him find a spot for his shop. But as other people suggested earlier, perhaps there's another spot that look at in the community that, so that the city could maintain that revenue stream. And in the meantime, take a pause on these locations in order to get some waterfront planning and a master plan and goal for our waterfront. So.
Okay. Councilman Jones?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm in full support of Rob Brown being able to expand his business. I've used him to work on my boats. He has a great business. It's much needed in this community. I agree with that his assessment that it'll bring more business to our shipyard, which is an important part of our community and our wintertime economy especially. And I believe it's currently underutilized. And I think this could be a step in the right direction to help expand. My only issue with this proposal is the lot that he wants to purchase. I also I would like to hear from him. It's unfortunate that we've passed the public comment, so I would even be in favor of, I'm not sure where we go from here as far as if, we could take some comment or.
Can we suspend the rules?
Yes.
We can suspend the rules to accept comment if that's will of council.
So, Mr. Mayor, I move that we suspend the rules so we can hear from Rob Brown.
I have a motion and a second to suspend the rules. Is there any objection?
Mr. Mayor,
You object, Councilman Beadle?
if we're gonna hear the pro side, we need to hear the nay side. It's not, there was opportunity to speak, and if,
Let me, Councilman Beadle, let me rephrase. That may be my slip of the tongue there. Suspend the rules to take public comment, and we won't limit it to just Mr. Brown. That's a good point. Is there any objection to suspending the rules to allow public comment? Okay, hearing none. If you could just state your name.
Art Brown. Yeah, and I wasn't intending this to be an affront against the commercial fishing industry, which it kind of seems, I don't want anybody to get into battle mode. I've helped countless fishermen on Sunday get prepared so they can fish Monday, and the revenues they obtained probably fishing that period far exceeded whatever I've made off those jobs. So, I mean, if you weigh that in, what I'm doing is going to benefit the fishing community far more than the revenue that the city may gain from the half a dozen boats stored long-term down there. That's my opinion. But yeah, and it's a great lot. My business, if I'm right, the original charter on the Northville was to basically an industrial park to create jobs and revenue for this city of Cordova. And my business will fit that charter pretty well. And I sort of gave you a little letter there just to give you, just to establish my credibility basically. And I've been in business for 7 years. I've done work for all the construction companies, the city of Cordova, Cordova Electric Cooperative, numerous fishermen. And what I do, what I understand a lot of people get opposition around is if you're going to divide the pie smaller, because Cordova's got a limited economy, whether you're selling gas, lumber, or whatever, and if someone comes in that's going to open up another business that's already existing, it divides the pie up further. What I do is very specialized, and I'm not dividing the pie up further with the rest of the community, the rest of the business members. Something to consider. And I'm also been working with Oregon companies, Alpha Harmonics, and helped them with the Wave Energy Prize with the Department of Energy. And the second step to that is they've obtained a $6.5 million grant to build a working device and launch it off the coast of Hawaii, which my business has been earmarked as a working partner in the grant. And I mentioned actually with Scandia Laboratories and Raytheon, which is something I never thought would ever happen. So it's pretty cool, but I'm currently earmarked for 10% of that grant in business, which will come to Cordova. I'd like to bring it to Cordova, and I'd like to do all I can to bring more of that work to Cordova, because with people like Alpine Diesel, Heavy Metal Welding, and Peterson's, we have some really qualified fabricators in this town, and I think I'd like to see them build the whole device here. Right now, it's outlined that I'm going to construct all the working components within a device, and I need a bigger facility to do that. And I've looked at some of the other lots available, but you know, they're just by the time you build a building, there's just not going to be any room for parking. And I think, well, basically, what in my opinion is, the guy if he's broke down, fisherman's broke down, and he needs to get fishing, you know, that one period could be your profits for the whole season. And, you know, so what I do is actually helping the fishing community. I understand there's probably putting a financial burden on the city because they'll lose the revenue from the 10, 12 boats down there. They're stored long-term. But yeah, I'm not going to pretend. I worked for the city for years. I'm not going to pretend I know what business is going down there. So, because it's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that a person outside doesn't see as far as what's needed by different departments. So I'm not going to attack them for that. And see, other than that, I'm not a very good public speaker, but I encourage you to look at the little packet I gave you. And I think I pretty much covered everything I wanted to say. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, I think we just want to keep it at testimony. I don't want to start a debate between council and the public. So council, on the phone regarding a packet, there was a packet that was handed out here, but we'll have to get that scanned and emailed to all the council, so it's really not part of the record right now, but thank you.
Thank you.
Is there other testimony regarding this item?
I assume you reset the clock when you did that.
Yes.
Testify again.
It's 3 minutes.
So Scott Pega, 110 Mount Eccles Estates. A couple things. One, I thought you just moved to make that lot unavailable, and if you did so, you then kind of reset the process that would have to require an application so that it would be the decision to change that from unavailable back to available prior to it being sold can be done. So I think you just locked yourself out of considering this application by changing that lot to being unavailable. The other thing I would really stress is I would like you to reconsider land disposal method to, if you're going to do it, to method 4, because that allows your commissions to provide input. It provides the applicant the opportunity to demonstrate the value of the project to the public at the same time. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right. So further public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the meeting back to order on this item. So we have a motion. I think I heard a councilman mention earlier that if council did want to adopt this, it would probably, and wanted to actually take this action at this meeting, it would probably need to be an amendment to make the lot available first. But also, I think I heard both councilmen that made the motion and the second kind of speaking in opposition to it, and that's generally, you know, the rules dictate basically you want to make a motion because you're in favor of it. So it may have been my fault because I had a really long pause there where I just about moved on to the next item of business because there was no motion, and maybe I should have done that. But anyway, we're on discussion on the main motion. Councilman Allison.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily against the motion completely in the end, but I don't favor moving forward this evening. I don't believe that the Harbor Commission has had an opportunity to discuss it. I know that the Fishermen's Union posted something online about their interest in it. They didn't say whether they were in favor or against it, but I know that Rob Brown is very, very well respected in the community. I respect his work. I would hope that we could find him a location, but for the time being and to move things along a little bit, this evening I would move to refer to staff with a referral to the Harbor Commission to get their input on it and then bring it back to us when we have more information from both the public and the Harbor Commission.
So you have a motion to I'm sorry, Councilman Beadle, I started to step on you. That was Councilman Beadle with a second to refer to staff. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Ellison.
Yeah, the reason for referring to staff, and I think I stated it before, but is to get more information. I don't want to bring this up for a vote tonight and vote it down and to kill the project. I would rather see us get all the information we can to make an informed decision, a more informed decision with more stakeholders. I know that when I was previously on council for about 2 years, we were fighting over lots down in that area, and I know at that point in time it was very unpopular to give even 6 inches to anybody besides the harbor for all of those lots down there. And maybe things have changed since then, but I would certainly like to get their input before we proceed. And if, in the meantime, if there's anything staff can do, or anybody in the public that's got property that would work for this situation, certainly let that be known.
Further discussion on the motion to refer? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Ann Schaefer,
Yes.
James Burton,
Yes.
Jeff Guard is absent. Robert Beadle,
Yes.
David Allison,
Yes.
Ken Jones,
Yes.
James Weiss.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay, so council's referred disposal of lot 3, block 5 on Northfield to staff for Harbor Commission and other input. Before we enter in the next discussion, I wanted to speak to the rules for a minute, and also the clerk explained a referendum and initiative petitions for the public to make a change to a council passed ordinance. The only way for a council to change the ordinance, I believe, is to pass another ordinance that basically countermands the original ordinance. So I know we have this on the agenda for discussion. I just want to remind the council that it's a violation of the rules to speak against a former council action that's been adopted. So I think this discussion should probably revolve around council's will to submit another ordinance and what that shape would take. But Councilman Jones.
Mr. Mayor, maybe I misunderstood what we did at the last meeting, but I provided a council member sponsored ordinance to the city clerk to be brought up at this meeting. And I had a second. So maybe we were remiss in our duties to take a vote on that, or yeah, I would like to see what the council's appetite is for bringing it up as a new ordinance and an action item.
And so it's a discussion item under new business, and frankly, probably gonna have to do a little legal research on how to bring an ordinance that council just passed back to ordinance. It's a little out of form, but I think also the council adopted a budget, and this was a revenue piece of that budget. And so I think it would be incumbent on council somewhere in that ordinance to, or somewhere in another ordinance to make provisions for balancing the budget. So Councilman Allison.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, any council member has the opportunity to move for reconsideration on any motion that is passed or failed for that matter. That didn't happen in this case. A referendum could have stopped everything until a vote had taken place. That didn't happen. I recognize that there are initiatives, petitions that have been turned in and that it will come for a vote. I guess you asked, Councilmember Jones asked what our appetite for discussing would be. When this was passed, we did discuss at least one, maybe two exemptions to the increase in the sales tax cap. And I would be willing to discuss that. In fact, I think we should discuss that. However, reconsidering the entire thing, my appetite isn't too much there unless my co-counselors would agree to a way to fix the budget if we did remove these, the tax cap and the motor fuel tax. I'd suggested earlier during the workshop that that council had previous councils had moved money from the general fund into the permanent fund with the intent of when the city budget required it to use some of those monies for paying the some of the bond money for the school. And during budget time this year, that wasn't, that didn't appear to be an option with my co-counselors, but perhaps at this time, with the public interest, maybe it's there. If we did that, we would be able to balance our budget without these additional taxes. The only other way to balance our budget, if we were to remove these taxes, I guess there's two ways. We can get rid of some of our programs, close the pool for 6 months, get rid of Bedarkey, close the library, close the museum down, not have a museum. A lot of different options that we could have because we've cut the budget. The general stuff has been cut to the bones already. We don't have a capital budget. We don't have any replacement money for anything. We could do that, or the burden would be on the property taxes, because we set that in June. And if that's the way we want to go, you know, that's why I supported the fuel tax, and that's why I supported the cap, was to spread that burden more, so just the property tax owners or property taxes didn't have to cover it all. That would be shared with some of those people that come in for the summertime and pay very little for the use of all of the services that the city provides. So that would be my only, I would need some, you know, I can be bipartisan on it, but we need to have a give and take on that. Otherwise, you know, we passed, you know, we had an ordinance first reading, we had an ordinance second reading, we had a public hearing, it was passed all of those times. We had a budget that was passed that included those. So, you know, I would prefer council got it together the first time, but if we have to revisit it, then those are my thoughts.
And council, honestly,
I echo Mr. Allison's comments.
so council, I don't know that I have a suggestion here. So my concern is that every time, just for the rules, every time that council, a majority of council passes something, that a minority of council can just come back and bring it back to the table, which is kind of a violation of the rules. But I think there's some will of the council here. I'm just not sure how to resolve it. I don't think it's going to be resolved at this meeting, whether it's a council workshop to, you know, to open this back up for discussion and give council an opportunity to, you know, come up with either that or just draft an ordinance. How have a councilman draft an ordinance and bring it on the agenda, and I understand, Councilman Jones, you kind of brought that, but
Well, can I just explain that the ordinance, all it is changing the cap from 7,500 back to 3,000.
Yeah.
That's what your ordinance was, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that wasn't gonna be before them as a vote, because it was just a discussion, and I left it out, so I'm sorry that I left it out, but that's what's before you for discussion, was what he had
Yeah.
suggested was a ordinance which would have a new number, which would come before you as a new number on a new date, not tonight. Changing the $7,500 cap to $3,000 in all the places that you just changed it in 1156 in November. November 1st was the second read.
okay, so under pending agenda, we can just put an ordinance on the agenda for the next meeting or whichever, and then council will have a chance to consider that ordinance and make the compromises or set the number in that ordinance.
Well, that's why you're discussing it tonight.
Yeah.
Is the discussion tonight leading to that it's coming before you as an ordinance?
I think it's time to probably get a motion. I mean, there wasn't even a motion to discuss, so.
Well, that's why we try not to put discussion items on.
Exactly, I understand, and I'm a little culpable in that regard.
That's okay.
So considering the sales tax cap exemption, what's the will of council?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we direct staff to bring an ordinance forward, reducing the sales tax cap from 7,500 to 3,000.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to direct staff to bring an ordinance back to council.
Mr. Mayor, I have one question. James Weiss here.
Yes.
Is this something we could, I don't know if this is the right time to ask, is this something we could do a workshop on before the meeting?
Well, we have a motion on the floor, so, and let Councilman Jones speak to his motion, and I'll park that for you, Councilman Weiss.
Okay.
Point of order, real quick.
Councilman Burton.
So on our agenda, this marks a discussion of sales tax cap exemption. There's no motion involved in this. It seems like what we're talking about is something that fits under pending agenda for the two councilmen that already spoke in favor of this, Mr. Jones and Mr. Beadle, to bring it back before council on a future agenda. But I don't believe that it's proper right now to accept and vote on the motion on the discussion item.
I agree with Mr. Burton there.
Yeah, that's what I did last meeting.
Well, but I would say that there are times when we do have discussion items on the agenda. Possibly they're not often contentious items, and then we do things like a concurrence of council to have staff bring something back at the next meeting, and it's not a big deal. I believe this might not have the concurrence of council to bring the ordinance, or even a majority vote, which is why I wouldn't mind it being a vote. But if you want to take it to pending agenda, like Burton said, then I would, then the ordinance will come before you next meeting, because we have two that are willing to put the ordinance, but we might not have four willing to.
Yeah, my response to that is it does the same exact thing. If you have two councilmen that is on being attempted for next meeting, it does the same exact thing as voting on it right now. It's just a proper format.
Okay, Councilman Burton, I think I'm going to agree with you. We have this item as a discussion item, and I think council will have the opportunity under pending agenda. Just two councilmen will have that opportunity to put it on the pending agenda and set a time for it. So we'll. I guess, is there any further discussion, just discussion related to the sales tax cap? Okay, hearing none, pending agenda. Is there anything council would like to put on the pending agenda?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Jones.
I move to direct staff to bring forward an ordinance reducing the sales tax cap from 7,500 back down to 3,000.
probably doesn't need to be a motion, it's just we're talking pending.
Just need the concurrence of a second councilman.
Second.
Okay, so 2 councilmen can move an item to the agenda. So,
I think I've been remiss in not explaining this pending agenda page better, but I absolutely agree that what they've done just now is what's written on the bottom of page 69. You see how clear direction should be given to clerk and manager on what the agenda item is, and it can be the mayor or the manager or 2 council members who write something on here. So now I'm writing this on here, and it will come at the next meeting, is that right?
yeah. And the clerk and I did discuss this as well. Pending agenda is just meant to add agenda items for future meetings. And I've been a little remiss in not only in the sequence of this reconsideration, but also in just considering items that council wants on the next agenda. Are there any other items council would like on the pending agenda?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Beadle?
Thing that we have, there's a couple of things I'd like to talk is, I think it screams now for a land disposable versus a land development policy. Where I'll talk more about that in the council comments, but I think it's a perfect time now to get council's matrix or plan of how we want to dispose of land as compared to selling it. So, and another thing I'd like to go on for discussion is, I mean, there's a petition out there, or could be approved here shortly. Is the
So, Councilman Beadle, one thing at a time. So I'm hearing that you want to put land disposal on the next agenda as an action item to start that process. I think the manager walked through the 2018 tasks for this year, and I guess that's your proposal, to put on a pending agenda to move forward with a land.
I think it's already on the pending agenda.
It's on a pending agenda, but it's not an on agenda. It's not an agenda item.
Okay, what agenda item are we putting on?
Number 3.
Well, I know, but what are we putting on? I mean, are we writing new code? Is this a policy?
No, I have to have some sort of explanation of methodology of how we do one versus the other.
I can't hear you. Speak in the microphone, please.
We'll have to have some methodology of, for you to discuss of how we do land disposal versus land development as a government entity.
Councilman Allison?
Yeah, can that be one of our workshop topics?
Sure.
Perhaps in the next couple of meetings?
Yeah.
I think next meeting was.
Next meeting is UBS, and then after that, we don't know whether or not the auditors will be here, but we could throw it on the very next one.
And the auditors might not need the full hour, so maybe we can do 2 of those things.
Yeah.
Okay.
So would that work, Councilman Beadle, to have that in the pre-meeting work session in March?
I would just really like to see something before we go further on any more land sales. We have a bunch now that, like I say, I'll talk about it in my council comments, but so that council has clear direction on when we.
Okay, so is that a yes? Is that a yes that the March work session will work?
It sounds like it has to. But
Okay. And you had a second item for pending agenda?
Discussion for the 4-cent tax on fuel. We've got a petition out there, and it's just going to go away. And if we could discuss it, maybe move forward on it, get ahead of it before it gets ahead of us.
Well, okay, Councilman Beadle, we've just gone through the pain of putting discussion items on the agenda. If council wants to, and frankly, probably gonna get some legal assistance on this and process. I'm not sure it's legal for minority to council to just start, bringing ordinance back for reconsideration. And I'll have to look at our codes, but Councilman Jones.
With that in mind, we've got a petition, and with the discussion, we could probably, if you're talking to the legal counsel, the discussion, we could maybe move forward and have clear before our next step. That's the point, is don't don't wait, let's hit a ballot and then try to decide what to do.
Well, if council wants to reconsider, it has to be done at the meeting that the ordinance is being considered. So then it goes out of council's hands, then there's 30 days for the public to have an initiative position, a referral, a referendum. And then after that, it has to be by initiative, or councilmen need to propose an ordinance that essentially rescinds what they did before, so.
So you're telling me you don't want to talk about it until...
I'm not saying I don't want to talk about it, I'm just trying to stay within the rules. You would have to bring an ordinance back to council, and to put it on the agenda, you need the concurrence of another councilman. Councilman Jones.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I've done some extensive research into Robert's rules on this particular topic. My understanding is that you can only move to reconsider if you voted in the affirmative, and it has to take place at that particular meeting. You can move to rescind at any time up until the ordinance is enacted or the tax is enacted. At any time, any council member, whether you voted in the affirmative or not in the affirmative, you can move to repeal.
Yeah, and so the ordinances were passed, and once they've been passed and become effective as of the first of the year, then, so they became.
The next step is taken, so yeah, that does away with rescind.
Councilman Allison.
Just to clarify, our code allows somebody to move for reconsideration, whether they're on the winning or the losing side. Robert's rules, you have to be on
The affirmative.
on the affirmative, but our code specifically states that it doesn't matter which side of the vote you're on, you can move for reconsideration. Just so you know that.
It's good to know.
So Councilman Beadle, regarding the motor fuels tax,
Somebody's out shuffling papers big time, and it's just, sorry.
What?
Somebody's scratching.
I think that's someone online, if you can mute your phones.
Does he have a second for somebody to want to put an ordinance for the motor fuel?
I didn't hear one.
Second.
Okay, there's a second.
So that's coming as an ordinance on February 7th as well?
And that would be, Robert, was your motion for a ordinance for repeal?
If that's what it takes to get it on the ballot.
Well, you can't, I don't think council can repeal it. You have to put a ordinance in place that basically, well, yeah, I guess so. So, yeah, it would be a repeal because it's a new tax, so, okay. Okay, other items for pending agenda? Okay, hearing none.
Well, wait a minute. February 21st, Science Center presentation, is that happening? Who mentioned that earlier? I wrote a note, maybe during our work session?
Wasn't sure I don't know if that is presentation, but it's information.
Okay.
Is that for the work session, or?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, it's a ways away, so we
can check on that.
I'll just
agenda.
keep it.
Councilman Jones?
I heard Mr. Weiss mention earlier that he wanted to have a workshop on these proposed tax changes. Not sure if that could be something we can do.
So we've had 8 workshops, public hearing.
I think I would have to have more clarification. I think in terms of the taxes, I was looking back at documents today. I have mentioned an exploration in 10 or 11 different meetings of the taxes. So if you can be more specific what you'd like me to explore.
Yeah, so I guess for me personally, we've got both of these taxes are going to be coming up as ballot initiatives. We're going to be looking at either a special election or the, I guess, November election.
No, March of 19. We don't have a November election. The city just holds elections annually in March, unless there's a special.
Yeah.
So if we hold a special election and these taxes are repealed by a vote of the people, we're gonna have to discuss what to do. And I think that would, be better to do that sooner rather than later if we're planning on having this revenue for our budget.
So yeah, in the past, the default, Councilman Allison.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it would be an ordinance, so it's gonna require 2 readings and a public hearing, so
Yeah,
it's gonna get discussed. If it passes first reading, it's gonna get discussed and have a public hearing as well, so.
yeah, I don't know that a workshop would serve any purpose, because, yeah, council's gonna be able to discuss them and have several bites at it.
I think what we'd have to do at that point is, absent the revenue and given our position in the year, gonna have to present you with options. I think Councilman Allison stated those very well. You have operations, you have services or people. And you're gonna have to, well, you obviously have, you can take money out of reserves. You could take money out of the permanent fund under the
This is pending agenda.
Yeah, we are getting off track.
under the certainty that you're gonna use that money for debt service qualifying use.
I think on that piece, we can bring back some advice on where to go. I think in the past, it's property tax set mid-year. The default has been for council to put it on property tax, but
But this could not even happen in 18, so you might not even ever have to have that conversation.
that's correct. Okay, other pending agenda items.
Strategic plan work sessions, we're gonna do the 2 in April, just so I can put it on pending agenda? Okay, I'm gonna do that.
Unless we can do them outside of normal council meetings like we did before, if you could just, if we can, as we get a little bit closer, pick a night, spend a couple hours, just that, don't have to worry about the agenda afterwards. I think that's my preferred method, because I think you're free just to work on those things.
Okay, I'll just put the month of April so that we think
Okay.
about it then.
Then we can set those dates as we get closer.
Okay, that's all I have.
Any other items for pending agenda? Council? Okay. Audience participation? Or any comments? Yeah. Okay.
Somebody left some glasses up here too earlier.
I think Rob.
Evening.
I'm a Native American from Cordova, Alaska, here in Hallelujah. Our people was forced out of the city limits, and now I got a bill. I don't have water, sewer, I'm getting billed for that. I've got threatening letter that you're gonna turn me into a collection agent for $1,400. The first bill I got was over $300. There was no notice, nothing. I don't have water and sewer, and nobody's ever came by to pick my garbage up. I have a burn barrel, and I bury the cans in the glasses. And I do utilize your baler plant when I have hazardous waste. It says free over the radio. Well, here I am today. I was invited here, suggested to come here to this meeting because I couldn't resolve it in there. Nobody had balls to tell me things, okay? I just don't like how the city runs. And right now, I'm laughing because you people are fighting over land that you stole from us Native Americans. And I gotta fight my corporation to get my land. Now I gotta fight you and argue with you people to keep my money. You're taking food off my table for services were never rendered in this town to me. And I got more things to say. You say it's a law. Well, it's a law. You should have 2 tanks for your drinking water for the public. You don't have that. I sit there and watch in my truck. You guys, you have your employees shoot 100 gallons of chlorine directly into the line, not into a tank, and that's what the general public's drinking. And also, the dump doesn't have a liner. Isn't it the law to be able to have it lined and contain any contaminants without contaminating all the water around it?
Okay, so, Mr. Fox, the council has directed the manager and the staff to uphold the ordinances and the rules of the city, so if there's a dispute there, I think there's maybe a process that,
Excuse me, but you told me to come, your folks told me to come here to resolve this issue.
Okay.
It's extortion. No service were ever rendered to my property. And I suggested, if you want to come and pick my garbage up, you could take my waste out of 5-gallon buckets that I have to shit in, the haul out. You'd have to make a whole different system. You'd have to have a honey bucket pickup and a water supply truck. You gotta treat every village the same. Now I got water and sewer, I got a well in, I got a septic in. I can't get electricity, 1,200 feet, 63,000. Why is it that so much?
okay, so my understanding is you're being billed for a water service that you're not getting.
I was billed water service when I first came back out of prison, okay? I got hit with over a $300 bill. First bill, there was no other small bill, nothing. And I just blew it off. I thought it was a joke, and it still is. Because nobody's ever been to my property to pick up nothing. And if I put a can out there, who's gonna be liable when that can blows into traffic and kills somebody or maims somebody? Me. And it's my law for me to put my garbage can out there. There've been 4 deaths on that little stretch of highway, multiple wrecks on my right there on the stretch. If you can look in the back, past, it's all documented.
Okay.
There should be a street light there.
Okay, we'll take your comments into advisement, and we can check with the manager and perhaps get a report on.
Well, sir, how can we resolve this issue?
We can't resolve it right now. I think council's just gonna have to get it.
Well, I'm getting threatened through a collection agency. You folks are threatening me with a collection agency. I finally established a bank account. Took me years, tried to build my credit back up after I got out of prison. Now you're taking it all away from me. I have to close my bank accounts. I gotta stop all my direct deposits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is just new information to the council, so they're just gonna have to have an opportunity to get some background on it and get a staff report on it. We're gonna have to refer to our code, so.
We have his contact information. I will talk with him tomorrow.
Okay.
Well, why, you talked to me yesterday.
I did talk to you yesterday.
Yeah, briefly.
So.
You don't like natives.
Excuse me, this is audience comments, and we've heard your complaint, and the manager said he'll take it up, so he'll follow through.
You guys remind me of a corporation fighting over land that you stole from us. You're not you generally, but the old past council. I grew up in this town. There used to be a theater here. I couldn't come into it because my skin was brown. I was a native. It said no dogs, no native, period. All these businesses.
All right, we're not gonna resolve that tonight.
Well, that's one of my issues now.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
The other audience participation?
Tom Baylor, 304 Orca Inlet Drive. I gotta catch my thoughts there. I had what I wanted to think. So we're looking at 3 initiatives coming to vote. Obviously, we're not getting the word out. You know, public's not getting the information they need, or they're gonna be signing all these. I think you're sending some, from me personally, the mixed messages, whereas, you know, the city's broke, we're gonna have to raise taxes, we cut staff down, we did all these things. Next meeting, we're gonna give out bonuses. Then we discussed we're gonna hire another $125,000 position for the events coordinator. You know, it goes back and forth. I think everybody knows that they need to pay taxes, and you know, I don't mind paying taxes as long as it's not wasted. And I think Mr. Allison said, you know, we're not gonna cut the gym, we're not gonna cut the pool. I mean, we're gonna support those things. But the message is not getting out to people, you know. That's an issue. You know, you had a workshop today, and I've been to a couple of your other workshops, and you guys sit here and talk about things, and when you're in the audience, you're listening to things, and you go, wow, they got that wrong, or maybe I can contribute to that. Twice now I've seen it where you've got like 15 minutes before you're done, you go, well, okay, anybody else got anything else? You never open it up to the public. And you need to do that maybe after your discussion too. It's a workshop, because you guys bring things up that we could probably comment on and clear up. And, like the sales cap issue, how it affects different people. So I think I would take that under advisement. You're gonna talk about, you're gonna be talking more about these taxes and stuff. Let the people talk and get your message out better. The other issue I had is, there's a letter here from Copper River Seafoods, and it was given to the Planning Commission back in October in regards to the marijuana sales in the building. Now, I didn't get to them in time to get into that agenda, but it was there for correspondence. But that letter was also in response to our code that requires notification of anybody within 300 feet. They responded. This didn't get into any of our packets. It did not get put into the minutes for the Planning Commission minutes. And when they brought this issue forward for you guys, after they reviewed it, it wasn't in the council packet. That's public information, and it deals directly with the issue. I think when you're talking to lawyers, you could ask the lawyers if we knowingly and willingly withhold public information, whether you can get sued over that. So at this time, I would like to offer this up to the clerk so it does get to be the public information and is at least in the next packet. Because it is correspondence. I don't know how you cannot pass this on. You guys made decisions regarding this issue without this even discussed. I don't know if you saw it.
We have it.
So
Well,
the public didn't have it. Comments.
Written to the planning commission or the city council?
It's to the planning commission.
It's a conditional use permit that doesn't come to city council.
Okay, conditional.
But it's sent out because within 300 feet, you have to be notified. It had to deal with that subject matter that they passed on. So, again, get the information out to folks. I've been involved with planning and zoning and council for 15 years. I've only served one term on council. It's always been, I don't know when this changed, but it's always been when you had something on the agenda like Mr. Brown did tonight, you take public comment. He has an option to come in and speak at that time, but you also, after the motion's on the table, you allow him to come up and speak, and that allows the back and forth with council questions. He can't tell you his game plan in 3 minutes, and you don't have the option of asking questions. I've never seen this where you suspend rules. That's always been at the planning commission level and the council. I know I chaired a few meetings. Yeah, you bring the people up. That's their opportunity, and to discuss their plan, and that's the opportunity for councilmen. Because you don't open it up to the whole public. It's when you have something on the agenda. So I don't know when that changed either. I don't think it's a good change. I think Mr. Brown kind of got shortchanged there, and I think he was prepared to come up and speak, and then you kind of get thrown off. Of course, it's not easy coming up here and speaking. So I think you need to address that too when you have something on the agenda. Go back to where we would allow that applicant to speak. So, we're looking at, like I said, 3 petitions. We're not getting the word out. Got a little bit tonight with what Mr. Allison's comments. I think we need to do a better job and see what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'd like to be, it's Wendy Rainey, 2500 Orca Road, Orca Adventure Lodge. I'd like to be a little proactive. You guys in the 2018 tasks are tasked with deciding if the council is going to partner with CEC regarding the Crater Lake project and moving forward with those discussions. I don't know when that's going to reach the agenda, but I wanted to make sure you had a comment from the one fatal flaw in that project. I'd like to reiterate that my husband and I cannot support this project at this time. Our main concerns are risk to life and property that the project represents. Given the steepness of the mountain, in the event of a dam or penstock failure, we would have a maximum of 3 minutes from the breach before water were to hit our property. There is no warning system available that would alert us with enough time to evacuate our family and clientele. Recently, a visiting KEA, Kodiak Electric Association board member, looked over the proposed project and stated, I quote, "This project would never make it off the board table in Kodiak. No project is considered if there is any risk to established population with loss of life potential. How can the city morally enter into a partnership costing millions of dollars that puts any of its citizens or property in direct harm? This project does not solve the water issue. I urge the city to look at other ways to creative solutions to bringing the water into Cordova. This project is another expensive Band-Aid, not a solution. Both the Powder Creek and Humpback Creek outfalls produce year-round water supplies. An official position letter was submitted to Cordova Electric Co-op Board of Directors on July 25th in 2016 as they voted to move forward, and attached to this statement, and is attached to my statement, we have also participated in all the public meetings to date. The project, as it is currently proposed, has a skidder road and penstock line being constructed from the Orper property up the mountain behind the lodge. The same bank stability concerns that were documented in the past between Chugach Alaska Fisheries and Cordova Electric Co-op when the power line to Humpback Creek was put in exist with this project as well. We have concerns regarding the changes that are proposed to be made to that hillside and the bank stability after those changes. The safety of our family, employees, and customers who can number over 100 at any given time are our utmost concern. Also, the current project plan indicates the possibility of a majority of the staging for this happening on our property. The impact that could potentially be made to our business is of great concern to us. Even a temporary impact could be devastating to the experience that we are providing our clients, who may never have another opportunity to experience a pristine environment we offer. There's no good time of year for a project this size to happen without impacting our clients, which would be devastating to our current and future business proposals. Concerns raised in the preliminary study include potential flooding as a result of a seismic event or breach of the penstock, as a result of the high pressure that the pipe would be submitted to. Any risk to personnel on the downside flow is unacceptable, and we would need to hold CEC to a high bar on this proposed project to be comfortable supporting any hydro development at the lake. The bottom line is, with the information that has been presented to us today and what we've taken away from the public meetings, we cannot support this project. Until more is known and the assurances have been made, we ask you to continue to ask questions and help keep our family and clients safe, as well as preserving a historic part of Cordova. Finally, I cannot state loud enough with this project. The proposed Crater Lake Dam has one fatal flaw. This project presents unacceptable risk to life and property. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'm Scott, 204 Boardwalk Way, manager, North Star Lumber. I realize my petitions have kind of put a thing into your budget, but there's other options to look at for your budget to collect tax. A 1% increase in sales tax will get your $330,000. That would spread it over every business in town, every business, not just a select few. And that's what we feel like. We feel like we've been targeted by council on what we have because we have the big sales. I urge you to look at a 1%. You don't have to raise the property tax. 1% in sales tax will get what you need. I urge you to really look at that closely. Thank you.
Thank you. Further audience participation?
Tammy Altamont, 811 Woodland Drive. I just want to say to council that thanks for your thankless work a lot of times, and just sitting in the hot seat and just doing your best. Also, sales tax cap. I know I've come forward and talked about this. I don't feel that it's something that actually spreads the taxes across. It targets, and it's. I would be curious to find out years ago when it was set up, what was the purpose? Because people are developing or they're making improvements to their properties, which then there's sales tax or property taxes that can be gotten from improvements or development. And to business, I feel like that we're not promoting the businesses that we have in Cordova. We're not finding out, going to talk to these businesses, asking the businesses that do. I mean, the city has, who are these caps? Who, you know, when we given our sales tax, what businesses have that and what, how that would affect them. That would be maybe a good place to start. I also, on the disposal of lots, reading over these past, going through the land disposal, the planning and zoning's packet, it seems like there needs to be something different in policy that I've heard a lot in this last week of people saying, oh, this lot's not available. Well, I didn't know that I could even put something forward. I am in favor of Rob having the sale of the lot to Rob, but I don't know in the same meeting that you come forward, you change it from not available to available, and then there's something that probably should be looked at in that. And then also on the marijuana issue, last week in the Alaska Dispatch News, there was an article on unintended consequences of having the legalization of marijuana, but also the sale. I know it's legal in the state, but the sale of it within the city limits. And unintended is that somehow we've made it okay, and that the kids see that, and their suspension numbers have gone up. And having kids that we visited Talkeetna last fall, we walked around, there wasn't this building there before, we'd been there before and happened to not ready to go, oh, we can't go in this building, what's here? When I don't think that it's okay and I just am against that, so thank you.
Thank you.
Or Jewel, mile 2.2 Whiteshed Road. I think I want to just support some of the comments I've heard earlier. You started out with a plan to look at a broad application of revenue generating activities. And what ended up being landed on does not appear to me to be broad. I think that looking at a sales tax that hits everybody may potentially be more fair. I also would support what Tom said, and maybe a little differently, not only talking more to people about your plans and what you're trying to accomplish, but perhaps listening a bit more. I think I've heard lots of people come forward here, and then there's been other conversations. Not sure their comments were taken into consideration. So I also would reiterate Tammy's comments that I know you're working very hard, and it is difficult and painful, and people say ugly things to you. And I appreciate that you've stuck it out, and you're willing to even relook at your decisions. That's hard. I don't know if you're gonna be allowed to do it, but I appreciate that someone's willing to. I wish you luck, but again, I hope that you consider broad-based and really listening to what the community is able to help with in solving this problem.
Thank you.
Mr. Mark Fronticle, 813 Woodland Drive with Shoreside Petroleum. I just want to, I sent most of the council members, or all the council members, a little bit of information on what a gallon of gasoline is taxed on in the city of Cordova right now. Currently there's a 18, it's 0.183 federal excise tax on a gallon of gas. There's 0.001 cents a gallon leaking underground storage tank assessment on a gallon of gas. There's a 8-cent state motor fuel tax. There is a 0.01 state Alaska surcharge. And that equals about 26.5 cents a gallon for every gallon that we buy in Cordova at the pump. So with the new taxes, it's another 4 cents a gallon, right? So you're at 30.5 cents on a gallon of gas. And then the city adds sales tax, which equals about 22 cents a gallon. So the city is collecting almost half of all taxes on a gallon of gas that you get in the city of Cordova right now. So when you buy a gallon of gas at the pump, 48.5 cents is just tax. right? So with the motor fuel tax, we targeted one business. Basically, the city of Cordova says Shoreside Petroleum has to raise the price of their products 4 cents. Last night at the meeting, Alan said that the city charges a 13% administrative fee interdepartment to handle administrations. We didn't get that 13%. All of these additional taxes and tax burdens have an economic trickle-down effect to all of the businesses. If I charge 4 cents a gallon for state motor, or for a fuel excise tax, then Wilson Construction may have to charge 8 cents a gallon. These are all passed down. They have negative effects. If we do have to have an additional tax, additional revenue stream, let's find something that affects everyone, not just certain businesses. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Matthew Lindsay. I'm Vice President Operations for Shoreside Petroleum. Work closely with Mark, and Doug Lechner is in attendance at the meeting. He's Vice President of Marketing for Shoreside Petroleum. I would like to kind of add to Mark's points. There's a macro side to this with Cordova, and I've heard it mentioned tonight in several different topics regarding business and promoting business to Cordova. And the marine industry is such a focal point of the community and a focal point for Shoreside Petroleum, the business we do. There's a lot of communities that compete directly with Cordova for marine services, fuel, vessel repair, fish processing, you name it. You know, there's a reason people are coming here, and one of the you know, the ones we obviously see the most is fuel. And fuel, you know, when Doug's pricing a customer that maybe is not a local Cordova resident or a local Cordova business, that amount that they pay, the gross amount that they're paying for fuel, is considered in the port that they choose to go to. And so, you know, by pushing all that tax onto fuel, or those fees on fuel, it promotes vessels going to other ports. And, you know, community members might find that, okay, well, that's just an outside person, right, that tax is affecting, and that's a positive for Cordova. Really, the trickle down is that those marine service industries that are in Cordova are affected negatively because those people are going elsewhere. So, you know, the groceries, the rental cars, the flights in and out, everything that those vessels do when they're in port, you know, is a trickle down for the community, and that's a tax base, you know, as well. So I think it's just something to consider, that, you know, Cordova isn't isolated, especially in the marine industry. You know, we see it because we have locations in Kodiak and Homer and Seward and Whittier, through Southeast, that, you know, communities are kind of vying for those revenue streams with those vessels that are more, you know, not home ported in a given community. So something to consider when we're talking about fuel taxes in particular, how that trickles down to the greater good of the community and as far as the tax base. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Greg Meyer, 1 Canada Row, and I'm glad I'm not in you guys' seat. It's been a long process, you know, it really has. And what I want to say probably won't be very popular with this crowd. It's a pretty business pro crowd, and hopefully it doesn't cost me a tender job. But I don't think there's a tax that you can put out there that doesn't affect me or my businesses. You know, I raised a family here. I've coached basketball here. I've been on electric board, been pretty involved. And I don't see a lot of moms and dads here because they're probably home with their kids. And I just want to try to represent how they feel. I'm in a service industry with 40 employees. A lot of them work for tips. A lot of them work for minimum wage. You know, they just get by paycheck to paycheck. You know, and it literally paycheck to paycheck. At least 10 to 15% of them need a draw to put in their checking account just to cover their bills. a gal that works at my front desk, who just bought a property 2 years ago, and she said to me, Greg, my taxes went up on my real estate, $200. I don't know where I'm gonna get $200. And I said, well, I can give you some more hours. I know it hurts. Those people feel those small amounts, and a 1% sales tax is gonna be another $200 for her. She doesn't know where she's gonna get the first $200. She has kids in school, she has little kids, they have grandkids. These small amounts, these little percents, mean a lot to some of these people. And I've said it before, and I'm gonna say it again, and it's not popular with the business community, and I'm sorry, but I live here, my kids live here. They cannot, the residents cannot expense a lot of their costs. When they buy fuel, when they buy groceries, in my business, I can. And I prefer to have the tax burden on my business, so I can deduct it from my taxes, and I can choose how to pass it on to my customers or make some savings. And I strongly believe in this, and it's not popular with the business community, but I'm gonna pay no matter what. I'm just gonna write that $10,000, $20,000 check, and it's gotta come out somewhere. I would prefer to have some of that as a tax deduction. And anyway, that's just how I feel. And I just think some people, I think we need to, if the room was full of moms, I think you'd hear the same story. And anyway, it just, I appreciate the job you guys are doing. And if we don't raise taxes, I just hate the thought of the pool closing, the darky, and there's already some complaints about the hours being cut back, and our budget is minimum. And I don't know if people, maybe the message isn't getting out there. I don't know if enough people know that you guys lost $700,000 in timber receipts for the school. I don't know if they know you lost $250,000 from the state reneging on some of their payments. I don't know if they know these things, And Kenny, that money, that $700,000 in fish taxes, and I'm sorry, but you butchered my diagram. You really did. We really start at zero, in our budget, and we hope to end up at zero, right? When the hospital comes and asks you guys for $500,000, we're down here, and that $500,000 has to come from somewhere. And it comes out of a reserve account, right? You put that there. Now your reserve account is, instead of $6 million, it's $5,500,000, right? Then we don't get our timber receipts. That's another $700,000 we're down. Now we're down $1.2 million. We're down here and our budget's up here. Our zero line is here. Now we gotta take it from somewhere else, right? And we need a new baler, whatever. It keeps going down. We're down here, $2 million deficit, and we get a $700,000 windfall. We're still down here. We're not even up here. So we're just keep taking from our savings, how long can that go on? I don't know. We close down the pool, we lay off people, we could do that. But I think our priority was economic strength and quality of life in Cordova. They're tough decisions, and every tax is going to get complaints. Every single tax you do is going to affect businesses. I don't know that there's a positive tax that people can say, oh, good, let's go to Cordova and pay some tax on that. It's fish taxes, it's fuel taxes. It's got to be a tax somewhere, or we close down, some of the wonderful things we have that bring people to Cordova. So I'm just here for the little guy right now. And Tom, I'll talk to you in the morning. I'll apologize. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Greg Meyer, council.
Further audience comments? Well, thank you. I know council appreciates public input. It's how democracy works. So, council comments.
Sorry.
Councilman Jones.
Where to start? I appreciate everybody coming out tonight, and I appreciate the input on everything. And as far as the Rob Brown thing, I really hope that we can move forward in supporting him. Like I said before, I just don't know if that was the right lot. I hope he takes the time to work with staff and maybe trying to develop a different lot. I think it's a very important business to bring to this community. As far as the taxes, appreciate the opportunity to bring them back up for discussion. I understand that money's got to come from somewhere. I understand that a sales tax hits everybody, which is on one hand a good thing, but on the other hand, it hits the people who can't afford it. So that's why we didn't do that in the first place. As far as the comments on the fish tax bringing us back up to zero, that's fine and dandy until we start doing things, you know, all of a sudden we get the money and the next 2 meetings we're spending it on things that weren't in the budget or weren't in the strategic plan, or so that's where I have an issue with that. And when, you know, it was kind of the council's directive was to save that money for offsetting bad fish tax years, and that wasn't what was happening in my opinion. So that's why I've brought that up in comments before. And yeah, I look forward to working on land disposal versus land development. And I appreciate Clay. I appreciate you working with the Coast Guard and working with staff on the harbor. I think those are 2 very important things to grow our tax base so that we can maintain our revenues without having to raise taxes. So, thank you.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yeah, thank you everyone for coming out, staying, and providing comments and input. I think something that's come out of the last few meetings is that there seems to be an overall sentiment that we need to come up with some sort of plan guiding our waterfront vision. So hopefully we can move forward with that into the future and help guide some of our land disposal or development that happens at council. And then also I know budget or the taxes can create a burden on, some people more than other. No one likes taxes, but we have to balance our budget at the end of the day. And I mean, I know the budget process this last year was extensive. There were, tons of meetings, lots of workshops, and I think it would behoove us to move forward and then readjust as necessary once we see how everything performs. And thank you everyone for bearing with me as I'm still continuing to learn the ropes. I didn't mean to break the rules earlier. So thank you everyone.
Councilman Allison?
Yeah, I too would like to thank everybody for coming out and giving us your thoughts. It's always appreciated, and certainly I, for one, listen to those comments and try to weigh them carefully. Like to remind people that there are seats open. Council, school board. Hey, the telephone board had 14 candidates put in their names for 4 seats, so there should be no reason we can't get a couple for each seat here. So appreciate the work of my co-councilors and the mayor, and certainly staff. Thank you.
Councilman Beadle?
Yes, I'd like to thank the mayor for all those letters of support there, and the development committee on their hard work on the Tanner crabs. They did get a commissioner's, we got a commissioner's permit for Tanner crab from February 15th to March 15th, so that's good to see. There's other economic development going on. That's great. I keep hearing comments about summer people, how we got to get more money out of them, how we got to make them pay. On your way home tonight, just drive through town and see what town's like without those summer people. So those summer people, they just need things to spend their money on, but they are a huge economic driver engine for this town, so they do contribute a lot. We spend as much time on economy, how to develop new economies and stuff, as we have on taxes lately. probably already have a solution. It'd be a win. So hopefully, as we're talking taxes, we're spending equal time on developing economy. And thanks to all the people from the community who came and gave their input. I know your time's valuable too, and thanks for coming out. And that's it. Thank you.
Councilman Weiss?
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, first off, Wendy Rainey, you did a lot this last week or so to promote everyone coming to these special meetings and work sessions. Thank you very much for that. Next, the site, something Robert had brought up later, or earlier, I'm sorry. We kind of do need a criteria for how we dispose of this land, you know, where I'm not so sure that we know when we're going to just enter into a direct negotiation with one organization or one person for a lot, or you know, for example, the Science Center lot. I don't see us opening this up to everybody who have a good idea for the land that we're trying to dispose of. And Aaron's always got a tremendous organization, but we're not really. If we had criteria for this, we wouldn't be getting these comments. You would see why these things were the way they were. Also, one more time for this land not available, we have people coming in talking about taxes all the time. I've seen the not available list. Any way you look at it, it's large red sections that are marked as not available. It doesn't get more, no, this isn't available than that. I hope we find a way to make these lots available and get these people land and promote business. It doesn't look like it's open suggestion when you look at those kinds of maps. Also, let's get as much going as we can. I mean, maybe we do need some strategy for a waterfront property, but why are we shutting it down at all? We're all talking about how much we need to support a little guy or how pro-business we are. Let's start acting like it and get these lots for sale. Let's see. And as far as the work session for whether or not we would want to adjust or make an exemption or something like that, you know, I'm not afraid to make a wrong decision. I'm afraid to leave it wrong. So if a 1%'s better, or if we need to have more talks about this, let's keep working at this. If we don't explore a threshold or something that this community is going to work with, we're going to go and put it to a vote, and they're going to tell us that it's not what they want. And that's going to come out in employees of the city. That's the only way I can see it, anyway. Anyway, thank you everybody for attending tonight, and good luck to all the games this weekend.
Councilman Burton?
There's a lot. Yes. I'm going to try to take a less is more approach on this. I want to agree with Mr. Jones's comments on the fish tax, Mr. Allison's comments during the regular meeting about pretty much where we stand on our options for, a reduction in service versus implementation of tax. And looking at our budget, I've had to check with people around town. It's a difficult position to be in with us financially as a city, because we are not, where we are right now and how much we've trimmed, we're not at a sustainable level for the future when it comes to capital projects and improvement and replacing equipment and things of that nature. So, we need to be looking a lot longer term than just 2018. And, taxes that we talked about for a long time are part of doing that. When we talked about the motor vehicle fuel tax, for instance, Greg Meyer had some excellent points on the fact that these taxes are something that we can write off on our federal income taxes. And personally, as a business person, I would rather see my money stay in the community than go out. And there's different ways to capture that, but you know, we'll talk about it again. Sounds like, and just really quickly, Mr. Baylor's comments about suspending the rules and having some audience participation on Mr. Brown's proposal. And, you know, just because in the past things weren't done the way that we're doing them now with suspending the rules, it doesn't mean that it was done correctly. So we're trying to stick to procedural law and order as we should. And the proper way to do that, once we're in session and having a meeting, is to suspend the rules to allow somebody to come up. So that's why we're doing it that way. And speaking specifically to Mr. Brown's proposal, I'm super in favor of finding something. And just like Mr. Jones said, maybe that's not the perfect law. I actually was the chairman of the Harbor Commission when we tried to retain that law for future expansion for uplands regarding the harbor, but I'm sure that we can find something. And maybe it will be that one, I don't know. But that's a process that I definitely wasn't ready to vote on tonight and make a commitment to. So hopefully we can find something that works for everybody, because I think it's going to be outstanding for Cordova. And that's it.
Thank you, Councilman Burton. Just a couple things. One, regarding the agenda, the guest speaker is there specifically for presentations and whatnot. So we have nonprofits and business proposals and stuff from outside of town. So I don't see any reason why a business proposal or something with some weight can't just request a guest audience there to lay things out. But they also will have had a chance to work with staff. There's also a Fisheries Development Committee meeting tomorrow night in this room at 7 p.m. So I just wanted to... Just this half here, the A side for the clerk. So that's all of tonight's business.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
If there is no objection, and I don't hear one, we're adjourned.